Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Ayo me fele sama,
Me fele sama,
mama me fele sama,
me fele sama,
sisa me fele sama,
me fele sama,
ay mama me fele sama,
me fele sama,
brother me fele sama,
me fele sama, me fele sama, me fele sama, me fele sama, me fele sama, me fele sama.
mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama, mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama, mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama, mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama.
Ayo me fele sama,
Me fele sama,
mama me fele sama,
me fele sama,
sisa me fele sama,
me fele sama,
mama me fele sama,
me fele sama,
me fele sama.
me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama, mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama. Ayo.
Mina bakabusi nengre, mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre, me fele sama,
Ayo me fele sama,
me fele sama,
mama me fele sama,
me fele sama,
sisa me fele sama,
me fele sama,
mama me fele sama,
me fele sama,
mama me fele sama,
me fele sama,
sisa me fele sama.
me fele sama.
Fire burn them dirty king, blaze up them dirty king, fire burn them king, send him disastrous, and time he fast with us, ancestors walk with us, fire burn them king.
Tendai Mwadi, be thankful unto the Mother, Father, creative life force of the universe. Kudzai Mudzimu Mukuru. Give praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Fahodie, Abibi Tumi, African liberation and African power. For all African people, it is Ojima Day, Tuesday, the 27th of the month, referred to as June. And we're there again for another edition of ZIVANAYI. For all those who may not be aware, the word sound ZIVANAYI as spoken in the Shona language, which is mostly spoken in Zimbabwe, simply means let us get to know each other, let us know each other, let us socialize, let us interact, let us build. And this is our weekly show whereby, you know, we just hold some open conversation. And generally speaking, I open up with a few thoughts of my own and then open the platform for ones to share their own thoughts, ask questions, or even raise their own topics. Yeah, we're gonna do it a little bit differently today because I have one topic that I want to address for the whole show. Yeah, and so we look forward to all contributions in relation to that. But before we get into the thing proper, let me just let the people them know. Say if you want to support gotkushTV, yeah, please, well, first and foremost, if you're new here, subscribe and hit up that bell to get the whole of the notification them, yeah. And if you want to support financially, feel free to do so by hitting up the Patreon link in your description right about now. Go to the Patreon link and you will find all things gotkushTV there, and you'll be able to support the platform as we grow and as we develop. There will be perks associated with your patronship. However, for now, it's just for those who want to support the development of independent Black Pan-African media. And as we, you know, over the next year, you're going to see a significant amount of developments, new shows and new episodes of flagship shows and so on and so forth. And so if you just want to support that work as we develop, feel free to do so by hitting up the Patreon. Also, we have a Telegram channel, yeah, for those who want to make sure that you get all of your notifications early and quick, because sometimes this platform can be slow in providing our viewership with their notifications. Yeah, so hit up the link in the description, Telegram link in the description, and we can post in there. So it's just about for those who want to really get your notifications direct from gotkushTV. Feel free to hit up that Patreon link, sorry, the Telegram link in the description to the video, and you'll be able to come true. Yeah, if you are watching anywhere other than live on gotkushTV right about now, you will only be able to access the link, yeah, to come live when you watch via gotkushTV. Okay, so if you are not watching via gotkushTV's main channel, which is on YouTube at the moment, please, yeah, click the link in the description where it says watch live on GKTV, and you'll be able to come through on GKTV to join the conversation, yeah, to click that live link and come on the platform with me today. All right, so you know, encourage ones to do that, especially today because we're having a very, very interesting conversation. You don't know, I say it go. Yeah, I think I've done and dealt with all of the housekeeping, so we're going at the thing. I'm going to share the link. Well, the link is already shared, yeah. It's pinned to the top of the chat. And I'm going to open up the platform early today, yeah, early, because I want to get at this thing. So a number of conversations have happened, yeah, over the last few weeks, yeah. And including the conversation last week, which is a very interesting conversation in relation to one, the Africans in the UK accepting MBEs and OBEs, and then another conversation in relation to stop and search, yeah? And possibly that some of that conversation may spill over into this conversation right about now. But if you haven't checked out the last episode, do go and go check it out because it was a very interesting conversation. Yeah. Oh, the link is not in the chat. Okay, sorry. Let me just make sure I put the link in the chat. Oh, I did try, you know, but something weren't quite functioning with the situation. Yeah. So me still know I type in the chat right about now. So we want to say big up Setimotep, we want big up IC Free, we want big up Kyra K, all of the silent listeners. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Feel free to hit up the chat. You can utilize the chat for conversations with each other, or ask questions or make points to those of us on the panel. So for those of you who actually want to ask a question to be interacted with on the panel, yeah, it's very important that you at gotkushTV, at gotkushTV, if you want to make sure that we get your question or your comment so that we're able to read it live. And obviously, you can do the super chatting and I'll let them something there, and we'll make sure we get your comment on. Okay. For some reason, yeah, now I'm not sure why, but I'm posting in the chat and it don't seem to be. Oh, I know why. All on there. We got sort it out right here now. All right. Thank you, Set Imhotep, for notifying us of the technical itches. You don't know. Yeah, we have for us, we need our sisters and brothers assistance certain time. Bigging up Miriam Jones, bigging up Oya. You don't know. All right. So we are going pin the link to join the conversation to the top of the chat. Once again, if you're just joining us, if you want to join the panel, you have to be watching via gotkushTV's channel. Okay, so click the link in the description of the video and you'll be directed to gotkushTV's channel. Yes, the link in the video where it says watch live via gotkushTV or GKTV. Click that link if you want to join the panel. So, as I was saying, yeah, number of conversations I've been involved in, and over years, really and truly, yeah, this idea, whenever we begin to discuss our plight as Black people, as African people in today's world, whenever we begin to discuss how we are going to solve and address the problems that we are facing, the issues that we are facing, whenever we begin to create and form and engage an analysis of those problems for the sake of finding viable solutions and coming to viable conclusions about the nature of the issues that we are facing, a recurring theme is for someone or some group of people to assert that some aspect of the analysis amounts to the perpetuation of a victim mentality among African people, that we are promoting, perpetuating, advocating, wallowing in this thing called victim mentality, victim syndrome, yeah, the victim complex. Yeah, these are all terminologies that relate to similar or the same thing. All right. And so today, we want to explore this concept of the victim mentality and the extent to which it actually applies to our people as African people, as Black people. Who does it apply to? In what ways is this concept used? Who is often labeled with the idea of the victim mentality? And as so labeled, is this an accurate description of self? And that me want to explore today. Yes? I mean, I want to from now. Me come with the big machine. Me come with my dub box full. Say any sound boy I want to test today. Click the link and come forward. Me ready for the whole of uno today. The dub box deep. I want you to just know that. So be warned when you click the link. Yes, you are going to witness and or engage in battle today, intellectual battle today. We have to dopey certain things and dopey certain boy. Yeah, and draw for the big dub plate. A sound clash with them on tonight. I want you to know that. So the subject is, do Black people, African people, suffer from a victim mentality? And that me want to know. All right. And anybody, yeah, well, anybody from any perspective on this subject here can feel free to click the link. All right. You know what I'm saying? So even if you agree with my position or disagree with my position, you know what I'm saying, feel free to click the link. Yeah. And if you disagree with my position, just know. So we have dub plate for you. All right. Forewarned is forearmed. Now I just know that. All right. So to begin this conversation, yeah, what we are going to do right here now is just engage in defining our terms. Yeah, I always think it's important to define our terms when we engage a subject such as this. Okay, and to define this concept called of the victim mentality, we are going to consult Wikipedia. Yes, Wikipedia. We are going to consult. Yes, Wikipedia. And I often enjoy Wikipedia for defining terminology such as this. Yeah, phenomena such as this. It's not necessarily the best when it comes to all forms of scholarship, but it, generally speaking, when it comes to defining terms, explores different dimensions and permutations of the terminology in question, and sometimes etymology, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and so I find it useful for providing comprehensive understanding of a terminology. And so we're gonna read, yeah, not the whole thing, but certain aspects of the thing. All right. So first and foremost, victim mentality is an acquired personality trait, okay, in which a person tends to recognize or consider themselves a victim of the negative actions of others, and to behave as if this were the case in the face of contrary evidence of such circumstances. This is very interesting contextualization of this term called the victim mentality. Let me read the first sentence again. The victim mentality is an acquired personality trait. Okay? Let's define personality. Personality is a structure gathering interrelated behavioral, cognitive, and emotional patterns that biological and environmental factors influence. These interrelated patterns are relatively stable over periods, but they change over the entire lifetime. So when we talk about personality, we're talking about structural. Yeah, we're talking about interrelated behavior. We're talking about cognitive patterns and emotional responses to phenomena that are affected and influenced by biological and environmental factors. So victim mentality, yes, is essentially a pattern of behavior, cognitive thought processes, and emotional response, okay, in which a person tends to recognize or consider themselves a victim of the negative actions of others, and to behave as if this were the case in the face of contrary evidence of such circumstances. Victim mentality depends on clear thought processes and attribution. That means you know who to blame, who is responsible, yeah, or seemingly or supposedly responsible for your state of victimhood. In some cases, those with a victim mentality have in fact been the victim of wrongdoing by others, or have otherwise suffered misfortune through no fault of their own. However, such misfortune does not necessarily imply that one will respond by developing a pervasive and universal victim mentality where one frequently, constantly perceives oneself as a victim. So that's important, right? There's a, I'm gonna come back to what I'm about to say when I get to the foundations, yeah? The term is also used in reference to the tendency of blaming one's misfortune on somebody else's misdeeds, which is also referred to as victimism. Victim mentality is primarily developed, for example, from family members and situations during childhood. Similarly, criminals often engage in victim thinking. It's a very interesting thing right here. This terminology right here. This sentence here. Criminals often, that means people who are responsible for making other people victims of their behavior, often engage in making themselves victims, conceptually speaking. All right, believing themselves to be moral and engaging in crime only as a reaction to the immoral world, and furthermore feeling that authorities are unfairly singling them out for persecution. That's how criminals engage in victimhood. Now, listen carefully now, because the question then becomes: is the idea of victim, legitimate, right? So there's victim mentality on the one hand, but is victim mentality the same as actually being a victim, or is there a difference between those two things? Yeah, and I think that this next section might help us to explore that, right? So there is something called a victim. In the most general sense, a victim is anyone who experiences injury, loss, or misfortune as a result of some event or series of events. Yeah, that's a victim. All right. So I think we can generally, presume and take it for granted that there are victims in life. Okay, that there are people who have suffered injury, experienced injury, loss, or misfortune as a result of some event or series of events. Yeah. So victims, that seems to be a legitimate category. Yes. All right. Of social designation. All right. People that have experienced loss, injury, misfortune as a result of events or series of events. This negative experience, however, is insufficient for the emergence of the sense of victimhoods. Individuals may identify as a victim if they believe that they were harmed. They were not the cause of the occurrence of the harmful act. They were under no obligation to prevent the harm. The harm constituted an injustice in that it violated their rights, if inflicted by a person, or they possessed qualities, e.g., strength or goodness of character, making them persons whom that harm did not befit. They deserve sympathy. So all of these bullet points relate to the state of being a victim, not the state of being in a victim mentality. The desire for empathy is crucial in that the mere experience of a harmful event is not enough for the emergence of the sense of being a victim. In order to have this sense, there is the need to perceive the harm as undeserved, unjust, immoral, an act that could not be prevented by the victim. The need to obtain empathy and understanding can then emerge. Individuals harboring a victim mentality would believe that their lives are a series of challenges directly aimed at them. Most aspects of life are negative and beyond their control. Because of the challenges in their lives, they deserve sympathy. As they have little power to change things, little action should be taken to improve their problems. Victim mentality is often the product of violence. Those who have it usually had an experience of crisis or trauma at its root. This is a very important point. Yeah, that people who experience violence can often enter a victim mentality, which would, as it relates to things like trauma, make it a mental health problem, a mental health issue. Okay, all right. So beyond now just the labeling, if this is indeed in any way relevant to us as Black African people, how should we address the victim mentality? That then becomes the important question. In essence, it is a method of avoiding responsibility and criticism, receiving attention and compassion, and evading feelings of genuine anger. All right. So, based upon this, when I go read the whole, you can see the page long. Yeah. So when I go read this whole thing, maybe we'll come back to it. Brothers and sisters, can feel, if they feel necessary, can go and find this Wikipedia page. Yeah. Oh, in fact, let me read this section actually, because it might help. Yeah. All right. It has been typically characterized by attitudes of pessimism, self-pity, and repressed anger. People with victim mentality may develop convincing and sophisticated explanations in support of such ideas, which they then use to explain to themselves and others of their situation. People with victim mentality may also be generally exhibiting a general tendency of realistically to realistically perceive a situation, yet may lack an awareness or curiosity about the root or actual powerlessness of the situation. Introspective, likely to display entitlement and selfishness. Defensiveness, in conversation, reading a negative intention into a neutral question and reacting with corresponding accusation, hindering collective solution of problems by recognizing the inherent conflict. Characterizing, tending to divide people into good and bad with no gray zone between them. Unadventurous, generally unwilling to take even a small calculated risk, exaggerating the importance or likelihood of possible negative outcomes, exhibiting learned helpfulness, underestimating one's ability to or influence in a given situation, feeling powerless, self-abasing, putting oneself down even further than others do. Okay, so those are just a few, characteristics of victim mentality. Yeah. Now, I'm gonna do two things. I'm gonna open up the line. The first thing I like to do is outline, in my experience, when I see this idea of victim mentality brought up in relation to Black people, in relation to African people as a collective. Whenever we begin to discuss the problems, the issues, faced by African people, and we begin to form an analysis and we begin to talk about Western imperialism, the system of global white supremacy, the Ma'afa, the invasion, conquest, colonization, enslavement, neocolonization of our land, our nations, and our people. The mere identification of these forces, the mere discussion of the robbing, the raping, the genocide, the pillaging that has been perpetrated against African people, simply the idea of referencing the reality of those facts is labeled a victim mentality. Yes? That's my experience. All right? That's my experience. Ones and ones are welcome to come and affirm my experience or challenge it as and where the case may be. Yeah. And I'm also, the second thing I'm going to do, is give my diagnosis, of those who actually are responsible for levying this charge of victim mentality against those who dare to speak about Western imperialism, the system of global white supremacy, colonization, neocolonialism, etc., etc., etc. The people who charge others in the African community, in the global African community, with suffering from a victim mentality, are in fact suffering from a syndrome known as cowardice. What I am saying is, the people who, especially within the African community, people of African descent, who label other African people as promoting and projecting and engaged in victim mentality, are in fact cowards. That is what I'm saying. Me nah beg no friend, me nah take back no talk. Who want vex, vex. All right? And why they are cowards, yes, the whole I know is coward, is because instead of confronting the reality of these systems and that history, you all seek to deny it, yes, because you are too afraid to confront it. And so instead of accepting your cowardice syndrome, you want to project onto other people with this fallacy, for the most part. I'm sure it exists some way, shape, or form, this victim mentality. I'm sure somewhere about the place it exists. But in relation to what I'm talking about, for the most part, I'm saying it's a fallacy. It's a mischaracterization. It's misdirection. It's deliberate deception designed to mask the syndrome of cowardice that exists in the mentality of those who promote the myth of the victim mentality. But there's another side to this cowardice. The other side to this cowardice is that there are those among us, and they are increasing in number, who promote the idea of victim mentality because they are in fact pledging their allegiance to the systems of Western imperialism, the system of global white supremacy, colonization, and neocolonization. And so they project the myth of victim mentality because they consider themselves, they understand their role as the first line of defense for white people, the white man, just in case, and in the face of the inevitable awareness of African people about these systems, their intentions, and what they produce. There are some people who have decided to cast their lot with the colonizer. And because of this, they act as the first line of defense for the colonizer against other Africans who would seek to identify the colonizer as a colonizer and challenge his colonizing ways. And so the mere identification of the colonizer as the colonizer needs to be challenged, needs to be shut down, needs to be ridiculed, needs to be caricatured, needs to be mocked, in order to dissuade other African people from identifying the colonizer as the colonizer and seeking to organize to end the colonizer's regime. That me I say tonight. That is my opening statement. Anybody want to test? Click the link. I dare you this evening. Click the link and come through for come test anything we say a while ago. And if you agree with me, you can come through and affirm what I say as well. I'm going to bring through the panel right about now. We have a few brothers and sisters in the back here. I'm going to, as always, bring you through in order of appearance. So greetings, Set Imhotep, Mr. IC3, and Angelo Hart. Greetings to you all. You know what I'm saying? You're there. So yeah, man, you know, you don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm in battle mode today, yeah? We're going to war, yeah? With this idea of the so-called victim mentality. So we're ready for Duppy. Any boy we step forward, I want to come bring with victim mentality argument. But I want no whole I know. We're ready for no whole I know.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
All right. So got you Set Imhotep.
I don't necessarily need to go first. I like to join the panel just to let people know, you know, don't be afraid. I don't know if people feel like me and you's brethren before, like outside of the show or whatever, but you like the brother ShakaRa only has experience with me because I come and join the panel, so don't feel afraid.
100%.
I have some things to say, but I was taking my notes while they were talking, so I think I'll wait. You know, I have some opinions, but I think I'll wait and see what somebody else has to say.
No problem, King. And definitely we will cultivate a relationship offline. You know what I mean? That is a must. You know what I'm saying? That is a must. All right. Next up, then, Kale, you there? Blessings, King. Oh, by the way, Kale.
Yes.
Me have a story for you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Me did pass through the rum cake competition.
Yes, I am.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Because what it was, right? So what the Holy Coptic Church, in which is based in London, right, and other places, was had an event. They have a culture day annually. So the rum was in fact a part of the culture day. My father was actually speaking at the culture day. Yeah.
Yes, man.
And so when the rum competition came up, I realized what you was talking about.
Right. Yeah, man.
Unfortunately, me never get to taste the rum cake, so I can't give my unbiased.
Yeah, man.
I never get to taste it, but apparently it did well sweet, you know. So
yes, man.
That one
and big up to Baba in Bandako as well, man. His contributions, etc. and that, man. Big up, man. Yeah, man.
So what's the contribution to the conversation, Kel?
I agree with everything, man. We need to use the the analysis of victims, which we are due to what you explained, and label the victimizers. And I believe we would be more better off if we was to use it as a political strategy to identify. So when they do say, well, you can do this, we can say, but you are the victimizers who are collectively have power to convince us who are unsynchronized that being a victim means that you shouldn't be moaning, when in actuality, if we claim, like what Neely Fuller Jr. said, then we can also put it on them and say, okay, well, we're a victim, loss of wealth, resources, psychological damage, and you have that ability to get us out of that. So we should use that as a political strategy, man, if that makes any sense.
Okay, interesting. See, my thing is this, right? For the people them who believe that this victim mentality thing is a real thing, all right? I need you to evidence it. Yeah, I want you to come through and give examples of the victim mentality. I don't want an airy-fairy example. I want a concrete example. Yeah, because for what I'm going to say today, you know, I'm going to give you concrete examples of how this thing don't apply, of how this thing is a misnomer, of how this thing is a mischaracterization, yeah, a misdirection, disillusion, illusion, desire for cause confusion. Yeah, that me I gonna do tonight. Yeah, so anybody, I dare or no, I'm welcoming you to come and click the link tonight. Yeah, and bring your victim mentality argument to ShakaRa today. Let me dop you over the whole of the internet.
Yes, man. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Give thanks, Kel, for that. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because the reality is, right, that when a people have suffered a harm, yeah, which we have and continue to, okay, and I think that we shouldn't feel no shame as a people about identifying that fact. Yes. It is essential that in order to address the harm that they have faced, that they identify it as a harm, right? There's no way to solve a problem other than identifying it as a problem, if that makes sense. Yeah. And in reality, to deny the nature of the problem is, in fact, I'm putting forward the indoctrinization of the highest level of victimhood, of victimism. In other words, as somebody in the chat mentioned, Stockholm syndrome, the deepest and most insidious idea or associated with being a victim is when the victim begins to identify with the victimizer, begins to identify his best interest with the best interest of the victimizer. Yes, and begins to define what he or she speaks about, what he or she does, based upon whether it angers, annoys, detrimentally impacts the victimizer. So in order to protect the victimizer, I am not going to speak about
Yeah, man.
the crimes that the victimizer is committing against me. Yes, Mr. I'm ready for today. I'm a now ramp. All right. Okay, I'm gonna come back to you, Mr. IC3. Yeah, feel free to speak, my brother. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Actually, you raising this topic because I come across this so many times. You know, when I speak, and as Brother Kel says, you know, as Brother Neely Fuller talks about, using it as a strategy. So I just did a chat GPT asked the question. I says, is it possible for a prisoner of war to be a victim? And it says no, not in the traditional, not in the sense. So I thought, wow, this is interesting. Just listen to what you said and what you were reading. So it all depends on how one perceives the situation. So if there is a race war going on in this world, and some of us are being caught as prisoners of war
Mm-hmm.
within this race war,
Mm-hmm.
then you cannot claim to be a victim.
Mm.
Hey, you see? So I thought,
Okay.
yeah, this is interesting. It only came up as a result of I started to think about this, and
Mhm.
yeah, you can't. If you are at war
Mm-hmm.
and you're a prisoner of war, you're not a victim.
Now, bear this in mind, yeah. What if? Now, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a question because I was listening. There's a
Hold
song.
it. Let me finish. I'm finished yet.
All
Hold it. You
right,
know, I'm just presenting. I'm just laying things down there. You know, I haven't started yet.
go ahead, my brother. Go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
watch this now. Okay, I'm just setting things up here. So I'm going to play devil's advocate now.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, if Africans
Mm-hmm.
are no longer in a state of war against the system of white supremacy,
Mm-hmm.
then they're no longer prisoners,
Mm.
and the war is over.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, black people, African people are invited to fit into society because the
Mm-hmm.
war is over. Stop
Mm-hmm.
thinking like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
So the state can say there is no war. The war is over.
Mm-hmm.
You black people lost.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're no longer prisoners of war.
Mm-hmm.
We've made changes. There was institutional racism and so on and so on. So there was colonization, but that is past. It is now time for you to get with the program. And if you work hard enough, you can progress within society. You can see we've changed the laws. You can see that we've made changes, you know, a lot of changes. You can see there's no evidence that there is any colonialism or white supremacy or racism. There's no evidence of that. We can say that there are a few bad eggs, you know, bad apples, sorry, here and there, you're going to come across
and bad egg.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're going to come across them here and there,
Yes,
but
yes.
systematically, it does not exist. That you can find no documentation.
Yes, yes.
That proves there is white supremacy.
All right. Now,
so
go ahead.
Just to finish now. So if you see black people overrepresented within the criminal justice system and within the prison system, it is not the system, but it's something to do with their nature.
All right. So in relation to your first point, yeah, I'm gonna quote a lyric, right? There's a group called Stetsasonic. It's a hip hop group, yeah, old school, right? And they have a song called "Freedom or Death." I was listening to it recently, yeah, and it relates to what you said. The lyric relates to what you just said a minute ago. Hold on, then. Let me just get the right place. All right. Hold on. All right. So he says, it only takes one side to declare war. And if the other side ignores, they get mapped, or should I say off the map, like a stains washed out in a laundry mat. Wartime brother, wartime sister, freedom or death. We can't wait because they won't wait. And we've been through so much ish to date that we're losing this war. And I hate to say that, but it's true. So I say to you, you better learn to defend yourself, right hand and left, in the east and west. Time for war, freedom or death. Yeah. So the idea here is that war is not always declared on an equal front, yeah, in terms of like one side declares war against the other and then the other side is mutually interested in engaging in warfare. Sometimes war is declared on unsuspecting, yeah, right, peoples, groups, yeah, nations and so on and so forth. Okay. And so I remember my dad saying some years ago that he heard somebody saying it stuck with him that we're not at war, we're just being terrorized. Why? Not because we're powerless, but because we're not fighting back. Right? We're not challenging the systems of terrorism. Okay. All right. So the question then becomes for me, which is the biggest state of victim mentality? Yeah. The recognition of the fact that war has been declared via whatever means, whether it's military or propaganda, or the denial of the fact that war has been declared, which would be a greater indoctrination into a victim mentality.
Interesting. A greater indoctrination. The denial.
Right. I'm just using the war analogy that you've introduced, yeah, into the conversation. Yeah. So I'm saying now, so based upon what your answer to the question now, if we can say, all right, yeah, we as African people, we have been through a system of enslavement. We've been through a system of colonization. We're going through a system of neocolonization, whereby the control over our labor, our resources, material and human, the control even over the benefits of our ingenuity are constantly and consistently being reached by those other than ourselves. All right? Does that mean that war has been declared and is still being perpetuated against us? And if we fail to respond in kind, yes, if we're in denial about that fact, yeah, are we empowering ourselves? This is the idea now, you know, yeah, that the victim mentality identifies the oppressive system. So does denial of the oppressive system, does ignorance of the robbery and the theft and the pillaging and the genocide empower the people who have been robbed and pillaged and genocided against? And that me want for no. Or does recognition of the robbery, the theft, the pillaging and the genocide empower those who are being affected by it? Yeah, that's not a question for you, Mr. Isaac. I'm just asking that in general, based upon the war analogy that you've brought to the platform today. All right, so I'm going to come back round to you, Mr. IC3. Set him in, look like you're ready, and I'm going to come to Angelo Hart, who has returned to the platform.
Yeah, back to the father. Yeah. Peace, Angelo, by the way. Yeah, I maybe I'll go back on my thoughts on your presentation for now, just because brother IC3, elder IC3 rather, presentation was a little bit closer. So he asked he made a few assertions, the foundations of which I want to challenge a little bit, right? So he suggested that we may not still be at war with white supremacy. I don't necessarily know that to be the case, as far as I'm aware. White supremacy is still at war with the planet. But so I just, you know, I kind of just
to be fair to Mr. IC3, I don't know if that was his assertion. I think he was putting forward a line of argumentation.
Hypothetical.
Okay. Yeah.
So then, well, then maybe it's really just the argument that I am attempting to break down. Because again, the idea that you can't be a prisoner of war and a victim at the same time, I feel like that's just on its face fallacious, especially because of the definition that we just gave for victim. I'm now reading the prisoner of war definition right here on Wikipedia as well, and it's actually quite telling. If you don't mind, I'll just read it out. A prisoner of war is a person who is held captive by a belligerent power during or immediately after an armed conflict. Belligerents hold prisoners of war in custody for a range of legitimate and illegitimate reasons, such as, and I'm skipping a few here now, exploiting them for their labor, recruiting or even conscripting them as their own combatants, or indoctrinating them into new political or religious beliefs. So I never really necessarily subscribed to the idea that we were prisoners of war across the Atlantic, but we certainly seem to fit the bill in the first place. So yeah, I really just wanted to kind of challenge that idea that you can't be a victim and a prisoner of war at the same time, and also that white supremacy is not still at war with the planet. But I guess I misunderstood the this contribution.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, like I said, to be fair to him, I think he was just saying basically they can say that they've ended the colonialism now, therefore you are no longer a victim. It's the argument from the colonizer side, so to speak, that he was presenting. Yeah, that was my understanding of it anyway. So he's dropped off. Looked like him internet gone, so he can feel free to come back as and where. Brothers and sisters, you can type in the chat unless you're having conversations by yourself if you want your comments read. So what one thing most platforms to read it over the live, you have to super chat. We're not gonna ask if we did that, although we do encourage you to super chat and support the platform, but just at gotkushTV. Yeah, so if you want your comment read, just at gotkushTV. So I know say you and I can see it, and your comment, question, or whatever can be addressed. It just saves me from having to read everything, yeah. And also you all can have your own conversations between each other if you don't want to do so. All right. Okay. Brother Angelo. Oh, sorry, I'm coming again. Hold on there. Brother Angelo, you there?
Yeah, man.
All right. Are you a time king? Got you.
Yeah, I was just listening in between while trying to make a little snack there. But yeah, man, fighting this thing they call white supremacy. Where to start, man? Where to really start? Like, this is such a deeply entrenched thing at all levels, you know, politically, socially, on an individual aspect. Is our own colonized people telling us sometimes to get over the victim mentality. And you know, when you started talking about that, the first thing that came to mind was coffee slave rebellion in Guyana. I'm sure you heard about that one. Guyana came so close to being another Haiti.
Yep.
And I believe it was his right-hand man that sold him out to the British. And I mean, what could have possibly motivated him to do that? I mean, what on earth the British could have offered him to just upend the whole revolution like that when he on the cusp of winning?
100%. And this is that speaks to now the latter part of what I was saying, right? In the sense of that there are those who have aligned themselves with the colonizers' political and economic system, yeah, and they have a vested interest in the rest of us not identifying the colonizer as the colonizer, yeah, because them are sellout and them are
right.
Yeah,
that's right.
All right, that's what's going on, yeah. That is the nature of things at the moment. All right, there are those who have decided to not end neocolonialism, not end the system of global white supremacy, not end Western imperialism, but just better their lot within it. Yes, just try to get a bit more of the pie, yes, within it. Yeah, and that's go on right here now. So they need for the rest of us to stop showing them up and their cowardice. And so they've developed a caricature, which is a tool of ridicule. And they know that with the promotion of this caricature, they have the backing of the global Western hegemony, because they understand that it is a defense mechanism for them. Yes, because not seeing them as their enemy means that we are less inclined to fight them. And there is also a disparity in terms of how this terminology is applied. Because the people them were charged, African people, with being subject and promoting and engaging in victim mentality, them no use them terminology there. When it comes to the European them, the European always has an enemy that they believe is trying to end their civilization as they know it. If I know Russia or China, if I know China or Iran, I know Iran or Iraq,
Mm-hmm.
Iraq, a terrorism.
That's
If
right.
terrorism, a communism.
Mm-hmm.
And a communism, a Islamism. The
Mm-hmm.
whole of them have a whole heap of people and things and terminology and ideology. And the whole of them want to end Western civilization. Yeah? The war on terror was significantly fought because they were able to convince a significant amount of the Western population that the people them in the Muslim world hate Americans because of their way of life. Yes, if I'm not Islamism, an immigrant, the immigrant come here and they want to mash up the country and change the way of life, and them come here and take we and take where we job and take where we house and take where we NHS and take where we hospital bed and all these things. Yeah, these people that run the neocolonial order always have, and they're always victims of somebody's intrigue. But me not see the people them in a few community. Yes, we charge we as the black nationalists, pan-Africanists, anti-imperialists with being victim mentality. Them not charge Britain and America and France and the whole of them blow out. With victim mentality. I want to know. Yeah? Me say me ready for you tonight. Click the link, me there or no. Come through.
Yes, I am. Yes, man. Yeah.
All right, Mr. I teacher, you want to say something?
Yeah, so this goes deep, you see, because there could be a third and fourth position.
All right.
So
come through with Mr. IC for you. Come through.
Watch this
With the permutations.
right. So because this is what I get by having lots of discussions on the African panels. You see, there's a position where I think you fall in with that camp, my camp, and Brother Kale. I think we fall in with the camp of the resistance to white supremacy. Those are still we're fighting. Okay, we're the fighters. Some of us, okay. Whether we're prisoners of war or not, but either way, we're in a fighting mode. Okay, so that's one position. The other position, position two, is those that have given up the fight, and they're going to try and integrate and fit into society, and they're going to try and get rid of the idea of a victim, and they don't see any problem. You know, if they work hard, they can get on and be successful, be a success within society because the war's over. Right. There's another position which I've come across.
What are the
and that is, I've been talking to some Africans who descend from royalty. Yeah, royalty. Yeah.
Sorry, I was asking you which society? Which society? Because you said
I can hear you.
You said progressing societies. There's a delay, so you catch up. But I'm asking you which society.
Right. Yeah. So position one is those that are fighting with white supremacy. Position two is to fit within white society, white society constructed by the colonizers. And white supremacy. So they're going to try and fit in, and there's no longer white supremacy. It's been over with. Let's just get on. That's position two. Right. So I'm position one. I think you're position one. There's position two, which is who you want to fight with today, if you dare them to come on the panel.
Dare them.
Now I'm talking about third position. Now I'm talking about third position. And there's possibly a fourth. Third position. This is why I come across the African elite, or those who are descendants of the African elite, and their position, as I come, their position is that the whole system of colonialism, its governments that have been set up in Africa are a separate entity from them. So they look they look at the state, they look at the government, and they see the government as a foreign entity. Yes. So they say, yeah, that's not us. You know, we've always been there. Our tribe has always been there. You understand? This is an imposition. It's a foreign imposition, and they cannot accept. They cannot take the position of a victim because they would lose their status. So they can't take that position. All they see is that these are as a foreign government that we didn't set up. We have our own tribal traditions and ways of living, and we're still maintaining that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we are struggling. Well, they don't like to use the word struggling. We are maintaining who we are, our identity, our tribe, our family, our name, and everything. And we do see the colonizers with their government. Yeah, so they have their government, but it's all a matter of trade. It's still a matter of trade, right? So that's position number 3. And then position number 4 is that some of those tribal elders are saying that some of the elders have joined the government of the colonizer.
100%. Which is generally speaking the case.
But they still, but they're still a chief. Pardon? Yeah, they're still a chief. They're still. It's just business. It's just business. So, can you see the 4 positions there?
I can. I can.
Positions and states of mind.
I can. Mr. IC3, you seem to have a significant delay here. So you might have to wheel and come again so you can catch up. Like refresh your page or something, go out and come back in. So you're on the same
okay.
You're in the same time zone as the rest of us. My assessment, if I'll save my assessment for when he returns, to be fair to him. It looked like all of the comments in the chat, nobody's added gotkushTV, so I'm assuming it's all internal chat conversation. So if there's anybody who, once again, if you're just here, if you are in the chat and you would like to have your comment question addressed on the panel, please at gotkushTV, so we can see it and identify it. Also, if you want to come live on the panel right now, you can feel free to do so by clicking the link, which is at the top of the chat if you are watching live via gotkushTV. So if you're not on gotkushTV watching at the moment, look in the description. You will see a link that says watch live on gotkushTV or GKTV, and you'll be able to come and click the link to come live. And so our discussion today is Black African people suffering from a victim mentality. I gave a rundown earlier, a definition of victim mentality as provided by the Wikipedia page on the subject, and I am asserting that the people, especially within the African community, who charge other people in the African community of suffering from a victim mentality, particularly because we identify things such as Western imperialism and colonization and neocolonialism as something, as forces that are affecting us today as African people, do so from the position of being cowards. These are cowards who are afraid to challenge the systems of global geopolitics that currently dominate world economics and political systems, and therefore are finding to do so. These are people who do not want to take personal responsibility for empowering us as a group of people, and would simply want to absorb themselves into the system of the oppressor and abdicate their responsibility to themselves and the rest of us as a people. I was going to give my assessment of your 4 points, Mr. IC3. I would say that I don't see necessarily an appreciable difference between the second point and the third and the fourth point, depending on the actual dynamics involved. So in our instance, we had nations that had their own governance systems, and the power of those governance systems was supplanted the autonomy of those governance systems was supplanted on the national level, and another authority was placed over it. Yeah, and sometimes, to relate to point number 4, our indigenous governance systems were co-opted by the colonial agenda. So all of those factors would be similar to point number 2, in the sense of the fact that we're going to go along, yeah, with the system of the colonizer in various different ways. If it were in fact the case that, and I think that you know, to varying different degrees, you might say that there is some semblance of this, yeah, whereby people were allowed to maintain some, yes, of their social order, which is true in a lot of instances, and so on and so forth. However, there are also instances that whenever those people begin to use their indigenous social order systems, political and economic, to challenge the colonial authority, there becomes conflict there. Yes. So the question then becomes, which agenda, which interest wins in that conflict? Yeah. An example of this is the Aba Women's War, yeah, in the 1930s in what is today called Nigeria. Okay, the British were able to co-opt a significant amount of the indigenous Igbo social order, yeah, by instituting what they call warrant chiefs. Yeah, the Igbo were known to have a very decentralized social political order and economic order among themselves, and the British installed chiefs among them that were allegiant to the British state. Yeah, so what happened is the women of the Igbo, who controlled the market in Igbo society, the women controlled the market, yeah, rose up not only against the British colonizers, but rose up against warrant chiefs who were in league and allegiant to the British colonizers, if that makes sense. Yeah, so the situation that you identify in point number 3 tends to create that conflict. Yeah, that those who ignore the imposition of the colonizer are challenged by those among them who don't want to ignore the imposition of the colonizer, who want to restore the indigenous socio-political order of the people themselves, if that makes sense. That's how it actually, so I get your analogy. I'm just putting your analogy into actual historical context, if that makes sense, and seeing where it might apply. All right, I'll give you a right of reply, then we're going to go to Set Imhotep, and then Mr. Bunya there as well. So go ahead, Mr. IC3.
Yes, yeah, brilliant. Yeah, you can clarify it a lot better.
Okay, give taps. All right, let's go on to Set Imhotep then. Come true, King.
Well, 2 things.
Okay, so watch this then.
Oh, sorry.
Based on the clarification that you've presented there, that has helped me, and has now confirmed that there is actually 4 positions. 4 positions, and if you accept that there's 4 positions, you can't hear me? You can't hear me?
Yeah, brother, I can hear.
Go ahead, IC3. You still got a delay. That's all it is. Yeah, you need to get rid of Sky and get BT. You know, it's
maybe listening on YouTube though. I don't know if that's what's going on.
Oh, unless you're, well, you shouldn't be, unless you're listening on the YouTube, Mr. IC3. Listen on the StreamYard, yeah. For the record, both BT and Sky are both colonizers, but you know, we're not our own things yet, so I'll just let it go. You know what I'm saying? All right.
Just as the brothers, as the elder is not here at the moment, there was somebody in the chat who had begun to tag gotkushTV. So I don't know if you want to address maybe.
I haven't seen it. Oh yeah, me see it. I'm a star it. Did you have a contribution to make, Set Imhotep, or?
Yeah, to get back to the original presentation that you have made regarding victim mentalities and victims, but I actually want you and the elder to finish up your conversation first before we get back to that. You know.
All right. Well, I'm going for comeback. So let me go on to and then we'll come back to IC3 and Set Imhotep. Mr. Bunya.
There. Well, go on.
Where I say?
Mic check.
Yeah, man, we can't hear you. We can't hear you good.
Okay. Greetings, everybody. Yeah. Big up. I've been listening a little bit, so I'm just kind of getting to grips with the conversation. But One thing that sprung to mind is how uninformed, or no, not even uninformed, but how people identify what war looks like. We must say and we must admit that war, in its simple form, is violence, right? And physical violence was the usual modus operandi for a very long time. So we're coming into a period of time or an era where the violence looks different. Obviously, there's psychological violence or whatnot, but usually that still came with a physical element to it. Where I think what we're dealing with is codified violence. Yeah, that many people don't understand to be violence at all. In fact, violation should be the foundation of all understanding of violence. Yeah, at every level. So whether it be verbal, whether it be someone imposing on your personal space, I'm taking it down to that kind of basic level, just to then ask the question of how we come to terms with the idea that we are at war, or that war is being enacted upon us, or violence. Because I think even when you go to the continent, yeah, you can be telling people that such and such is going on, and capitalism and this, that, and the other, and they're not really hearing you. Not because they're not hearing you because they don't understand the context, or they don't have access to the knowledge reservoir in terms of their physical the ambit of their reality, how it's being shaped in these things. So they don't understand, and the same way that we kind of criticize, when we criticize people in the West who do have access to those knowledge reservoirs, it's justified in a lot of cases. Sometimes it's not, right? Especially if you're going to talk to the younger ones now, who have been raised in the prison, right? That's a whole different. Even when I was a younger, yeah, when my dad was telling me that there's my dad. I remember one time my dad told me there's politics in the classroom. I'm in primary school these times.
Yes, sir.
And I'm saying, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no politics in my classroom. He tried to break it down, and his breakdown wasn't effective enough for me to understand. Mainly because he couldn't apply it directly to the reality. Yeah, so if I was blessed with the ability to I need to see this thing somehow in the flesh for me to fully understand it and accept it as my reality. So that was a blessing that I still carry today. But when I was younger, it should have been supplemented with an example. Right. So yeah, with these youngers now, it's going to be even harder. Yeah, and then if you can imagine. Yeah, man, go on.
No. Go.
Okay. So yeah. So, when we're talking about, well, we're up against. So the curriculums are several, right? You got popular culture, you got Pan-African ideology, you got the whole libraries and rooms full of books and speeches and all this type of stuff. And if somebody has read these things and still believes they're not at war, then there it's over for them. Yes. Right. But I think most of the time they haven't delved into it enough.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah. Oh, by the way, big up your pops. Yeah, I did see him not last Saturday before in a Birmingham.
In Brum.
Yeah. I was up there, you know. I tell you what he was doing offline. You know what I mean? Wow.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, they got your thoughts still. They got your thoughts. You know what I'm saying? It was good to see him. Let me ask you no. So let me make this clear here. As a Black nationalist, Pan-Africanist, my default position, and I would say this for the most part, people that come from this inclination, yeah, because of the work that we do, our default position, and I'm sure that this would include everybody on the panel, right? Default position when it comes to our people is patience and grace. Yeah. All right. We in order to do the work that we do, in order to organize in the ways that we're organizing, there's a certain level of patience that we have to have with the masses of our people. All right. in all walks of life, yeah, right? You know what I'm saying? Recognizing, for example, as Bunyan said, not everybody's read as much as you've read, and at one stage in life, we hadn't read as much as we have read now, yeah. So we have to be patient and graceful in relation to others, as others have been patient and graceful in relation to us, yeah. And so when I'm inviting people to get doppy on gotkushTV tonight, but now talk to them people there, yeah, who are simply out there living life, or not haven't studied to a certain level, or haven't considered some of the questions that ones and other ones may have considered, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So let me make that clear. All right. It's important to be humble, okay, in the face of the masses, yeah, of our people. Okay. So I would affirm the wisdom, yeah, of what Mr. Bunya has just said a minute ago. Yeah, oftentimes, when you're them say bread and butter politics, yeah, when we're engaged in bread and butter politics, hand to mouth politics, you're not necessarily considering the deeper ramifications of the system that you're in and how it relates to the bread and butter politics that you are now forced to engage in. Yeah, and that's the nature of the fight. And that's why every movement that we've ever had has engaged in consciousness raising, yeah, has engaged in flagging up the broader ramifications and the nature of whatever systematic violations, to use the terminology, we are facing, in order for our people as a mass to understand the different connections between our experience on this level and our experience on that level, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And that's a process that we have to go through. Okay. I am talking about today the hostile characterization as it comes with victim mentality. Yeah. And the implications of that characterization on the movement of resistance and the masses of the people. So to draw deeper into the wisdom that Bunya has expressed, the intentionality behind the victim mentality caricature is to dissuade the masses from adopting the stance of resistance, adopting a posture of resistance. The idea being that to do so is being ridiculed. So in order for you not to be a victim, you have to make yourself amenable to the system of neocolonialism, Western imperialism, and oppression. That's what it's designed. That's the argument that I'm making. Yeah. The masses who are just trying to live their everyday life, the context is created for them to be aligned with the system by default, rather than resisting the system as an act of agency.
This is yeah, man. This is OS operating system, OSWS operation. So operating system white supremacy version 6.9 whatever.
Right.
So them.
I know
we hear the word.
I know when bad man deal with 69 still, but got you.
Oh Lord, you could have let that one slide. You know? What you call it? And we hear the word. We hear the word. This makes me laugh actually. I know. We hear the word agent thrown around in some circles willy nilly, right? I find it very funny when I hear this, because they're talking about the conventional version that they know from movies and crime dramas and all this, and their own dealings with the police and all these type of things, right? When I hear agent, I'm saying the majority of people are agents, but they're unknowing, unwitting agents. Yeah, because they're giving agency to something, right? That's what agent is. You're giving
That's
agency.
right.
You're facilitating the motion of a particular thing, right? Or bringing something into being. right? And it's this unknowing agency is the most dangerous thing that we're dealing with. And I'm saying that this is part of operating system 7005, right? And it was always supposed to be that way. Yeah, it was always supposed to be a case where they no longer have to.
100%.
The machine is running itself, isn't it? You know?
And this is why the person who identifies and names the system becomes dangerous, because once you name the system and identify its characteristics, you increase the likelihood of people seeing it for what it is and resisting it. Yeah. So the idea is designed to keep us perpetuated in this holding pattern of victimization, whilst pretending that you're challenging victim mentality. And that we are saying, Mr. Mirren, tonight.
So then Shaka and MA and Ara, could we say that if we replace the word agent with saboteur, that would be more befitting, because some of us do saboteur things on the back of the mind unknowingly, and the front of the mind knowingly. You know what I mean? If we change these names, like for example, one of the good names that I heard earlier on was prisoner of war. African Americans, African Caribbeans, and the Africans on the continent, we are prisoners of war, IMF loan, etc. So we can use that, market that, and let people know that yes, we are prisoners of war, but have a backup to tackle when people go against that. You know what I mean? So we should need to change our words, how we kind of define certain things, man. For the massive.
I agree with that. I'm gonna say one thing, then I'm gonna go to Mr. IC3. Yeah, I'm putting this forward. Brother Carol mentioned Neely Fuller. Yeah, and Mr. IC3 always talk about Neely Fuller. All right, bear this in mind. Yeah, Neely Fuller was talking about racism, white supremacy. He identified it, but remember, yeah, what was the name of the book that he wrote? Yeah, I'm going to pull out the full title. All right, the full title of the book. Yeah, where him did write. It's called The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept Textbook, a compensatory counter-racist code. Why am I pointing this out? Neely Fuller wasn't just trying to identify what racism is and how it functions. He, agree with him or disagree with him, he was trying to identify methods and strategies that we can use on an everyday basis to counter it on a psychological level, principally, and on a behavioral level. Yeah. So even that was an attempted act of empowering the people with a defense mechanism at the very least. Yeah. I'm going to put it to you that there is no Black nationalists, Pan-Africanists, Black power, pro-Black movement that the definition or label of victim mentality fits. None whatsoever. Even some of the more moderate ones, the integrationist ones, generally speaking, the idea of victim mentality does not fit them.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to say that. And I dare anybody to challenge me. Mr. The coward them now come true. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? For come challenge the thing, for come challenge with dub box. Yeah, but dub box ready for them, you know. Right? So when yeah, you know what I'm saying? What you say?
I said, yeah, you know, when they got gotkushTV chat instead.
Okay, well, them not tag guy. Them not tag guy. You know what I'm saying? Them not tag guy. So we can. We don't say already, you know. If we don't tag gotkushTV, then we're not reading or comment them, you know. And maybe that's deliberate too, because they know why we read them and engage them stupidness, them cowardice. Yeah, so they might hide in the chat. All right.
We had stuff from before. The person, I don't know if it's about.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to IC3, then I'm gonna get this comment right here from Oyebowa. I'm trying to break down the Yoruba. Come home. Oh yeah, I've heard what it is. But anyway, go ahead, IC3.
Yes. So if we accept that there's four positions for approaches to countering this entity, that's the enemy of Black African people, then we need four different approaches. So it's true, based on what you just said there, that the victim label really only applies to those who are trying to fit in to the system and therefore don't know that they're victims. The other three positions are all fighting positions, because those Africans on the mainland who are fighting there's no way that they're going to accept the colonizer. They're going to see it as business.
I'm disagreeing with that though, because I'm saying
Go on then.
You can do business with the colonizer. It doesn't end your colonization. Yeah. If the business that you do with the colonizer is dictated by the colonizer and not you and your nation, then you are no less colonized. The fact that you engage in the business is in fact a prerequisite of colonization, right? So it doesn't mean that there are not those who are resisting. Yes, you know what I'm saying, but I'm saying those who are accommodating. Yes, and I don't mean those who are accommodating whilst organizing resistance. Yeah, Nat Turner, when he was on the plantation, if you didn't look upon him and you never know what did go on, what was going on behind the scenes, you would have think that he was an Uncle Tom. Yeah, right, a sellout. All right, but he was organizing, and his the impression of accommodation was designed as a front for more effective organization behind the scenes, so that we understand the nuances. Yeah. So, for example, all of that are resisting the system at this moment in time, to varying different degrees, partakers of the system therein.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. That's the nature of the reality in which we live. This is what I'm saying, right? That's we have to accept that reality. Yeah. That's the nature. That is the contradictory reality that we were born in and living at the moment.
Yeah, but the Africans are against that I'm talking to. They say no, it's trade. They say it's just everything is trade.
And I'm saying that I don't deny that on some instances that is the case. I'm also saying that some people are saying it's trade when it's just neocolonization. Yeah, there is trade is an aspect of neocolonialism. It's just that the trade is dominated by the neocolonizer and benefits the neocolonizer almost exclusively, with the exception of an elite among the colonized who are put in place to protect the interests of the colonizer against the interests of the masses of the people who may be inclined to rise up against the colonizer.
No, they're gonna say no to that. I've been there with them. They say no, trade is trade, and they're gonna say they say to me, "How are you gonna prove? How are you gonna prove?"
I see free. I am not denying that what you're saying, that the people that you're saying exist. I'm coming to you, Sir Imhotep, exist. What I am saying is that one thing that we shouldn't do is that because somebody come from Congo or Nigeria or Cote d'Ivoire or Trinidad or Jamaica, because them say it, I saw it go.
That's right.
There are many Congo people from Congo, Nigeria, Ghana, Trinidad, and Jamaica who are fighting against neocolonialism, right? In those respective nations. So because one person comes and says, well, no, it's not neocolonialism, it's a trade, then why is it, if that's the case, that the people of the Niger Delta are fighting against oil companies that are destroying their ecology right here now? Yes. Why is it that the people in the Congo are fighting against mining companies? Why is it that people all over Western Central Africa are fighting against the French military, corporations, and government right here now? Now you will get people from all the places that I've just mentioned. No, it's no colony. It's a trade. It's a trade. Trade. Yeah, you'll find that. Why is it? Why is it that there are people in Jamaica right now challenging the government for following IMF dictates? even when them doing affy. Why is it that there are people in Jamaica right now campaigning against their government, yeah, for acceding to the demands of the American government in relation to its own ganja laws? Yeah. Now the government, Andrew Holness and the boys, is trade and diplomacy. Andrew Holness, who's now a member of the King's Privy Council, trade, Marcus, you know, and all these things. Yeah. So yeah, we have to be more nuanced in our appreciation of what people back home are actually saying. Yeah. In these, and I hope that point makes sense. Imhotep. You're there on mute.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, Imhotep. Sorry, Imhotep. I did say I was going to come to Oyebowaile comment before I come back to you. Yeah? Comment reads: in order to formally start a war, one must declare war. So, with that being said, what percentage of our people have declared war against our enemies? I'm not so certain the first part of that statement is absolutely correct, because one can go to war without declaring war. Yeah. So if your land is invaded and you only become aware of the invasion at the point at which it takes place, it doesn't, the declaration of war is in the fact of the invasion itself, is in the act of invasion itself. Yeah. So people who are invaded don't declare war against their enemies. They engage in wars of resistance against their enemies. Yeah. If they so recognize the fact that they are in a war. If they do not recognize the fact that they are in a war, in my humble estimation, then they just become victims of the machinations of the invader. Which brings me to another point that I didn't mention earlier. It's possible to recognize that one has been harmed. Yes, a crime has been committed against me, and recognize that one is a victim of a crime being committed against me, but not have a victim mentality. Therefore, it's possible to recognize that a people have been victimized. It's possible for a people to recognize that they have been victimized whilst also empowering themselves to resist and fight against the victimization.
Yes.
Yeah. So those two things are not mutually exclusive. And those who perpetuate the victim mentality myth tend not to engage those nuances. Why? Because they want to promote the myth that identifying the system of oppression is by very nature acceding to, engaging in the politics of powerlessness. Oh, we can't do anything about it. When actually every movement that we've ever had has said, actually, we can do something about it. And not only can we do something about it, this is in fact what we are doing and what we should do about it. Come, my people, join we in doing this about this system of oppression, and let us get rid of it and get it off our backs. Yeah, every one of our movements have done that, and I dare anybody to name me a singular one of our movements that did not engage that process. The coward them, yeah, that promote this victim mentality foolishness. I hope I've addressed your question, Oyebowaile. And thank you for engaging. If you want us to read your comment or ask your question live, please at gotkushTV, and we will do so. Otherwise, it's a lot of comments to go through, and I won't be able to differentiate between all of them. Go ahead, Setimote.
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe provide an example for the panel regarding why some of these multinational corporations that exist specifically in countries like mine that are, well, formerly colonized, but really neo-colonized now. For example, if a multinational corporation, let's say a gas giant, right? Because it's a oil and gas economy we run in Trinidad and Tobago, is operating in your country, and they make $500 million in profits for the year, right? At most, you might be taxing them, what, 5, 10, 15% of that, you know? And then the rest, that 85% at the highest.
That's enough. Yeah, there are some places where companies are getting taxed all 1% and then foolishness.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
mm,
5% is a whole heap. But anyway, go ahead, go ahead.
for the privilege of setting up your oil and gas infrastructure. You
Yeah,
dig? But
yes.
but again, but the point being though, most of the not revenue, the profit, not just revenue, but the profit of those kind of industries are leaving the country. They are just leaving it. Oftentimes, a lot of times, the heads of those multinational corporations in colonized countries now are also foreigners who paying taxes outside. They ain't paying taxes inside. You understand? So I don't pretend to be an economist. I'm not necessarily a political scientist either. Never went to school for it. So I don't pretend to know exactly what neocolonialism is in terms of the industry definition. But we can see very clearly that the colonial, in the first place, the political structure, at least in my country and many of the other Caribbean countries, are
Yeah,
imports from our colonial power. The
yeah.
what do you call it? The financial uh
Institutions, yeah.
yeah, but not just the institutions, like the disparity in who is making the big money
Right.
in the country. Thankfully, in Trinidad, we have a nationalized industry for oil and gas. But the point is, a lot of times these things are exiting the country. So this is just an example of how these multinational corporations suck the lifeblood out of colonized economies.
Mm-hmm. Yep, good point. Yeah, and so the idea. So let's address that. Yeah, Carl, you made a good point in terms of neocolonialism. Yeah, and what it is, right? So just like I gave a definition of victim mentality, then let me give a definition of neocolonialism. Very brief. Yeah, we're not going on a deep science. Yeah, it's a very big subject, but we're going to give the basic definition. And Coffee has joined us, so we're going to go to Coffee after this. All right. All right. So neocolonialism. Yeah. Now, one of the reasons why we go to this book is because the Asante for Kwame Nkrumah is considered largely to be the coiner of the terminology, yes, and its major definer in the 1960s, yeah. And so he says the essence of neocolonialism is that the state, which is subject to it, is in theory independent and has all the outward trappings of international sovereignty. In reality, its economic system and thus its political policy is directed from outside. Yeah. So in other words, because the economics is controlled from outside, those outside economic interests are able to define the policies, the government policies, the political policies, yeah, in their own interest. Yeah. I'll go one more. The methods and forms of this direction can take various shapes. For example, in an extreme case, the troops of the imperial power may garrison the territory of the neocolonial state and control the government of it. Yeah. More often, that will be the case. For example, that in this time, places like
Afghanistan up to a few years ago.
What was for no? I'm talking about in this time. So when he was writing, this was 1965. So I'm talking about when they called Rhodesia, South Africa, which Rhodesia later became Zimbabwe. Congo was that for a particular period of time when the Belgian troops invaded and tried to garrison a piece of the Congo, and that kind of thing. But listen to this. More often, however, neocolonialist control is exercised through economic or monetary means. The neocolonial state may be obliged to take the manufactured products of the imperial power to the exclusion of competing products from elsewhere. Control over government policy in the neocolonial state may be secured by payments towards the cost of running the state, yeah, foreign aid, by the provision of civil servants in positions where they can dictate policy, and by monetary control over foreign exchange through the imposition of a banking system controlled by the imperialist power, which is still the case in 13 African nations today, which is still the case in places like Martinique in the Caribbean, whereby their financial system is still controlled by France. Okay, so manifestly we can identify a lot of these dynamics, as just been explained in this definition, exist all over the African world. Yeah, if we want to understand the extent to which we exist in a condition of neocolonialism. The question then becomes in relation to victim mentality. Does the Osage for Kwame Nkrumah identifying these dynamics, does the Osage for identifying these dynamics and anybody else who identifies these dynamics, yes, does the fact of their identification mean that they are engaging in the politics of victim mentality? That is the question that we have to ask. Is that what Kwame Nkrumah and all of the others who identified these dynamics after this point engaged in? Let's see.
I feel like in the very definition of victim mentality, it says that it had to be to the contrary of evidence. So if there is evidence that we are being victimized in these ways, it could never be a victim. It could never be a victim mentality.
It's a very good point, my brother. I'm gonna come back to you, Mr. IC3. But let's get coffee in now because
yeah, man,
it is coming 20 to 10. So yeah, go ahead, coffee.
Yeah, man, big up all of the comrades in the chat and on the panel. You know, down with capitalism, down with the capitalists, because capitalists bring jobs and wealth creation, and we don't want that. You know, we want the leadership of the proletariat, and we want state control.
A job is not better than self-employment. A job is not better than self-employment. And you don't need capitalists to create self-employment.
Bring jobs.
Hold on, you know, allow me for that. Allow me for that. Yeah, a job, self-employment is better than a job. It depends on the kind of self-employment, because you know, not all capitalists make more than workers. You know, I mean, I remember, so the CEO is also a worker. Yeah, he get employed. Yeah, so I'd agree with Imhotep that self-employment is a good thing, not always the best. But then the question is, what is stopping more Black people, especially in third world countries like Jamaica, from being self-employed? What is stopping the growth of entrepreneurship? What are the government policies? What are the crime rates, the corruption rates that impede the development of entrepreneurship? Because I don't really think that Black people have a victim mentality, because Black people from the third world, when they leave corrupt anti-capitalist countries and go to America, Canada, and England, we can see that they make something of themselves in terms of whether them working as workers or they establish businesses, right? So the work ethic is there, the drive is there, but the opportunities is not there. So therefore, the fundamental questions we have to ask is, what is stopping the growth of self-employment, of entrepreneurship, of capitalism in the third world countries? Kwame Nkrumah had it right when he talked about a monetary system control from outside. You understand? The IMF, World Bank, Bretton Woods, all of those things. Yeah, but they're not omnipotent. You have third world countries that escape the poverty trap, escape the Malthusian trap through wealth creation and through capitalism.
Name them, please. Name them, please.
China, Bahamas, Botswana, Rwanda, Rwanda is coming there. You know what I mean? Dubai.
You're gonna see a trend with all of these answers.
Hold on. Yeah. Hold on. Japan, right? These are all third world countries. The United States of America was a third world country. UK was a third world country. Every country before the advent of capitalism and the Industrial Revolution was what we would today call third world country. In other words, living on $1 a day as the average.
It's a geographic, not an economic.
Me soon done, and we can jump in with anti-capitalistic. So the fall, the dramatic fall in poverty and the exponential rise in wealth, right, only occurred when countries that are now called first world and countries that are now called developing world that soon catch up the first world. It's called the convergence theory. Only way that countries can converge and get rich is if they adopt certain capitalist policies, like Garvey said. All right, we can go on now.
All right, 1 second. Not paid by the government is here. So come true, not paid by the government, and we'll respond to all.
Yeah, man, bless up, man. Yeah, I'm just here to say, can we please stay on the topic? I think we're having a good conversation. I don't know how it somehow became econ again. Somehow, no one has a problem with capitalism, right? It's okay. We're already living in it, so let's just get.
Oh, really? Nobody not a problem. ShakaRa, you not a problem with capitalism.
Let the brethren finish. I'll come back.
Yeah, since we're not talking about how to get the money in an already capitalist system, I think we can stay on the topic.
We can say that we do have a problem with capitalism, but the brethren is correct. I'm not sure why you're laughing. It's actually not funny. I'm not sure.
Yo, but can you come on and talk like say?
No.
Relevant.
No, he's not saying.
No, I'm saying stay on topic.
Yeah, right?
So hold on, ShakaRa, am I off topic?
Yeah, you kinda. You did address. You did
yo,
try. No, hold on there. No, it was.
Yeah, try to please the comrade.
It was sick. Hold on, it was.
Yeah, sell out now. Sell yourself now.
You're dropping a little thing about agency and entrepreneurship and work. You're dropping that thing, yeah. But we'll see what I go and see. But not different to what was expected. I'm gonna. But what the president is basically saying is that we live in a capitalist society. And we're all making money and so on and so forth.
No, him say we don't have a problem with capitalism.
Hold on there, right? But yeah, no, and I'm saying that we do. I'm fighting, right? So yeah, so there's no problem with that. But what the Brethren is asking for us not to do, and I agree with him, is get wrapped up in a conversation not about economics, but neoliberal economic theory, right? That's the question. Yeah.
Okay, but try to refute an argument with an intelligent, not just to say, sure, every time him talking about capitalism.
Yeah, fine. No. But he's not trying to refute your argument. He's simply
because he can't do it.
And maybe so. Maybe.
All right. So stop waste time with him. Stop waste time with him, man.
Maybe nobody on the panel. Is as erudite, yeah, as Coffee on the subject of neoliberal economic theory. I'm willing to accept that. At the same time, if neoliberal economic theory is not the topic of conversation, then the brethren has a right to say, well, it comes.
That is it.
But we're not talking. But I never. You hear me mention neoliberalism?
Yeah, right. So
you hear me mention neoliberalism?
No, but you and I both know.
Say that's straw man. Say that's straw man.
When you say
he always come with some straw man or some ad hominem.
Sorry, so
I can substantiate the statement that I'm making. Yeah, I'm coming to you, Mr. IC3. That the reason why I'm able to say neoliberal economic talking point is because it is a fact among the neoliberals. This is not in relation to yourself as an individual, Coffee, but neoliberals tend to define economics as neoliberalism.
Yeah, but shut up.
Sorry. 1 second. So I'm speaking to a sensibility within a particular ideology, and I believe I'm correct, yeah, in saying that if it is not agreement, yeah, with neoliberalism, they don't define it as economics. Economics is defined as what neoliberals agree to, yeah. So
all right. Let's go back to before Meloman and answer.
Hold on there, Coffee. Because we're having a conversation. I've gone back to Meloman, and I'm coming to IC3. We're gonna say something, man. We're gonna deal with everything nice and easy. All right. So go through Mr. IC3.
Yeah. So how I think because the things about victim status, how I think we can bridge Kofi's angle with the subject is that, you see, it's all about this thing about trade. You see, if it's trade and economics, yep, then there can be no victims in trade because it's just business. And then if you're going to try and bring in the word victim in relation to economics, then they're going to say, well, the way you show there's a victim in economics is by highlighting the corruption. So that word keeps coming up. Corruption. You know, the black the Africans are corrupt. You see. So and to the corruption in economics and finance would be to detect dishonest practices or where somebody hadn't followed up with the agreement. You see,
100%. But
so the word victim only applies to economics where you can find flaws in the transaction. Otherwise, they can say,
"Oh no, yeah,
there's no victims."
No. But the point is that an economic system, you can have economic systems that are fair and just, and you can have economic systems that are unfair and unjust. It doesn't make them any less economic system. Economic systems are just methods of social relations that govern resources, good services, and exchange. Yeah, the term economics in and of itself does not denote a moral compass necessarily.
Or as Amos Wilson said, it don't even have to have money.
It doesn't have to have money. Yeah, but so you notice I didn't mention money, right? I mentioned resources.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
What's it called? Yeah. So I'm gonna respond to what you just said and what Coffee said at the same time, Mr. IC3. But before I do that, I want to come to a brother in the chat who has added gotkushTV so he can get his comment read. So if you want your comment read or your question read, please at gotkushTV. Big up brother Daniel up there in Manchester. You don't know. Bless up yourself, King. In the act of war, how should the soldiers general seek victory over neocolonialism? And that is the very, very, very good question, because any of our freedom fighters have actually put forward methods for defeating neocolonialism. The first thing we have to do is identify what it is. Yes. The second thing that we have to do is identify our interests, our actual informed interest, in opposition to neocolonialism. So it's not enough for us to identify what we are against. We have to identify what we are for. Okay. And then the third thing we have to do is organize to resist neocolonialism and institute what we are for. Build institutions that are built on the principles that we stand for in order to replace the neocolonialist system. And I'm going to give you some examples of this as I respond here to Coffee and Mr. IC3. Let's use the example of Rwanda. Yeah, Rwanda is possibly the most case-worthy study in neocolonialism on the planet today. Yes, as far as its capital city is concerned, there is some increase in living standards, and some things that have been done that I would actually agree with need to be replicated all over the African world. For example, getting rid of the plastic. If you've been to a majority African nation anywhere on the planet, you will know, that for 9 times out of 10, there is a significant problem of waste disposal, and plastic is a scourge, on the environment. Okay, so those are policies that I would actually agree with. However, this is the nature of neocolonialism. Remember what they said for saying, the methods, more often than not, however, neocolonialist control is exercised through economic or monetary means. The neocolonial state may be obliged to take the manufactured products of imperialist powers to the exclusion of competing products from elsewhere. Control over government policy in the neocolonial state may be secured by payments towards the cost of running the state, by the provision of civil servants in positions where they can dictate policy. And by monetary control over foreign exchange through the imposition of a banking system controlled by the imperial power. Why am I saying this? Rwanda is one of the world's largest exporters of cobalt and coltan, despite the fact that cobalt and coltan is not mined in Rwanda. So how is this possible? Rwanda is one of the largest exporters because it acquires these resources from Congo. Much of the civil war in the Congo today, through which resources are being exported and expropriated, is facilitated by particularly America, particularly Britain's relationship with Rwanda and Paul Kagame in particular. Yeah. So, from a Pan-African point of view, from a Black nationalist Pan-African point of view, from a universal African nationalist, that is to say, Garveyite point of view, Rwanda cannot be a success story if it becomes affluent, or its affluence is concentrated in an elite at the expense of a whole mass of other Africans who lie right next to them. This cannot be an example that we follow. Okay? And the people that stand to benefit from that arrangement are not the masses of Africans, even in Rwanda or the Congo, but corporations such as Apple, corporations such as Tesla, that are again run and governed from outside and are controlling the monetary, governmental, banking and corporate structures that facilitate these trade relationships to their benefit at the expense of the masses of the African people. This is why it's very important to understand what neocolonialism is. And this is why those who are allegiant to neocolonialism have a very vested interest in muddying the waters and ensuring that the rest of us don't understand what neocolonialism is, because they can allow situations like that to perpetuate itself under the banner of it just being trade.
All right, let me respond to. Sorry, you finished?
Yeah, go ahead, King.
Yeah, well, in terms of Rwanda, yeah, you're right. Kagame have a long history going back to going back to the 1990 when he was a rebel who did try and invade Rwanda. Yeah, but Rwanda produces is not just a cash crop country. It produces other things too. I can't remember, but it produced some other things. But you're right. It is concentrated. It is concentrated because Kagame is not so much interested in development, but enriching his cronies. That is neocolonialism, right?
But you just gave it. But you just gave it as a capitalist success story.
Wow.
All right, let me just finish. Let me just finish before you jump in now. You remember I said kinda with Rwanda? You remember? Okay, good.
No, I actually don't.
Well,
okay.
let me just finish now, Virgin, right?
No, you asked the question.
Okay. Yeah. So Rwanda, countries like Rwanda, dictators like Kagame, is not the same as a Pinochet. You understand? I mean, because Rwanda don't have a Chicago school economists over there to set them right. But other countries, other third world countries that have escaped that trap, like China, they are the ones that imbibe Milton Friedman and Chicago School. I can't remember the name of the Chinese official, but he was the one who was talking about market reform in the 70s, and he mentioned Milton Friedman. He was the one who said it is glorious to be rich, let 1,000 flowers bloom, right? That's the difference between a leader who wants economic freedom and development for our country.
Are you arguing that China is a neoliberal state?
Let me just well, before you ask me, let me just finish and explain and see if the question is still relevant. Yeah. So yes, that's a difference between in leadership between Kagame and the Chinese leaders who implemented market reform and Pinochet. Yeah, and other leaders in other former third world countries that implemented market reform, like in Asia and so forth. Yeah. So yeah, Rwanda is not the ideal. Far from it. But would a Soviet style imposition, a Soviet style economy be a better model on Rwanda? Because Kwame Nkrumah was implementing a Soviet style economy in Ghana. Would that model have been better than Rwanda? Maybe Rwanda model is slightly better, not as better as Ghana. You know, maybe, but I think both Kagame's neo-colonial model and Nkrumah's Soviet model, those are disasters. You understand? Better.
I'm still a bit confused as to how you've gone from affirming Rwanda as a capitalist success story to now.
No,
Because
everything is relative. Because everything is relative. So if you go and compare, you can compare Rwanda. You don't compare Rwanda to China. You compare Rwanda to Burundi or some other African country that with corrupt African leaders that destroy themselves. You understand? Rwanda comparatively is better than those African countries. Botswana comparatively is better than those countries that surround it. And it can't just be explained.
Better by what metric? Better by what
in terms of standard of living. Everything is not absolute. You can't just compare Rwanda with outside. You have to compare Rwanda and Botswana with African countries. And then you have to ask yourself question, why is it that these countries are relatively better than other countries? Are you saying the other countries are not neo-colonial? Are you really saying that? Are you saying?
No, I'm saying the whole of them are
okay, so I'm saying that there are other factors. There are other factors that explain development, and you cannot reduce everything to you cannot reduce everything to those neo-colonialism causes poverty.
Remember, we weren't talking about neocolonialism. We were talking about
mentality. So I ended up defining neocolonialism.
We're not talking about neocolonialism. So what is victim mentality? No one argue say that's neocolonialism. Why you bring up Kwame Nkrumah? Pause. Evade so much.
Pause for a second. I'm gonna bring through Morning Rose. Yeah, Morning Rose. I'm bringing you through right now. Greetings, Morning Rose.
Hi, can you hear and see me?
Wow.
Yes, wow. Good to see you. Good to see you, Morning Rose.
Okay, hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, I have a photo bomb here. My 3-year-old is,
No worries, everything's good. My 5-year-old photo bomb every shows. Everything.
I know. I seen the last time. I don't think I was here last week, but maybe a couple of weeks ago, I seen him pop up, and you just gave him a kiss, and I said, "See, this is the mark of Black fatherhood." Yes, King and friends together.
Yes, sir.
And I know he must see you reading all the time. Then he will be reading as well.
Comes time. Let it be done. Let it be done.
Yes. I see this is a very square conversation between the men here. You have a corner here, a corner here. I'm like, oh my goodness. Where are the hugs and some apple juice or something? On a serious note, I really love this conversation. I think that a lot of us go through experiences through our own lens and perspective, which may be limited, or it might be somewhat expanded, depending on where you live. However, we're often not able to really articulate the nuances, specifically how we're enduring white supremacy, the very small things in day-to-day life that come to impact us that don't really. There's just so much. There's not enough time to go to list all these things, because 10 people might literally be having a vastly different experience, and then trying to also similarly connect them as a experience of white supremacy. I think that we're always kind of trying to start in the middle or jump stages with stuff. And you can't just say, you're going to be declaring war, and we're not even having established organization. The organizations are not even working with each other. Okay. We're not at that particular stage. We're getting there. You have to have the ego and the understanding that you're going to get there. It might be your niece and nephew that's hard-headed right now that you got to explain stuff to, but they might carry on your legacy or something.
Yes.
But what's really imperative at this particular juncture is to organize properly. Because you can't do anything. When I say anything, I'll be specific. You cannot establish any type of demand without having first established leverage.
Yes.
Our leverage is not organized.
Woo!
So you have nothing that's concentrated congregated, built up, equitized,
right?
Everything just like even looking at minerals with the earth, everything needs pressure, time, intensity, heat. We're avoiding being angry with each other in healthful ways. We need to be in rooms debating and getting to a point to put on paper, and we're not doing that.
Yes,
we're on
yes,
Twitter.
Yes.
Like, what the fuck is Black Twitter? Like, how is that? It's probably in Webster's by now as a thing, but it's not. It's disorganization. It's emotional banter.
Right.
It's one-upness.
Right.
Like, have the dozens on the street. It doesn't belong in every white face's eyes and everything that we're talking about.
Yes.
And the ways in which we think. Like, they're leveraging our opinions by our data. And creating bots and robots and AI and all this stuff
100%
that think and talk like us. So they will really not need us. They're using us as a survey base without any type of compensation for such. And we're allowing that to happen and thinking that we're getting off our rocks or getting off our voice. So we felt liberated for the moment. And then going to check back to see if someone liked what we said. But that it effectively is valued at nothing.
Yep.
So I just wanted to kind of state that at first. And also, no one even, see, this is this whole victim mentality thing. I didn't hear nothing in the conversation as someone brought up poverty as an example. When even though, of course, that's going on, that's a base argument that we can use or not use at any time, because there's plenty of other stuff to talk about. For my personal experience this week, I will say, like right now I'm in a business intensive program. It's like for 6 weeks. And like, I really like put the pedal to the metal with some things I was like working on. But like one of the things that I felt like one of the things we talk about is like checking your ego at the door. Every time we have a conversation, every time we begin our sessions, we have to talk about what our ego was that week. But for me, I've been realizing like every week I've been having a different experience of the white supremacy that's around me that I'm also still subconscious with, as conscious as I believe that I am. And for me, this week is really like how much it meant to me to not have any tie to the linguistics of Africa. And to not understand a brethren of mine, because it's not words. It's not about the words. Like, African people speak in analogies and metaphors and reference things that are tied to the experience of you or an ancestor, or at least someone from your village, or your ethnic group. And that holds value. That's an invisible value that we have not even been able to tap into as least as American Black people. Perhaps if you're from some other countries, you have some tie to the ethnic base of Africa. Here we've been extremely whitewashed and very streamlined. And I think another thing that is a ruse is for people like Black people who are like in, for example, maybe South America. They have this Spanish and Portuguese culture that takes over and makes them feel so ethnic in other ways that are very much valid, but they like have to, their energy and efforts and time and spirituality is tied so much into that strongly. It's not necessarily valued at a lesser priority than their Africanity.
Yes.
And so, like, for those of us who don't have that filter, we're not doing our due diligence to explore it, like, to the depths of which I think that we should. But maybe we don't know how, and we can't underestimate how much people are really like don't have the time, accessibility, or just even know where to start. And I'm learning to be more conscientious of that. I want to thank you. I don't mean to go off topic now, but I just wanted to thank you because I feel like you set off a fire in me a little bit in an opposing direction. Like I was just, I feel like almost, I don't want to compare it to a marionette, but the energy of that, as if like the ancestors sometimes got to pull you back for something you missed if you were driving too fast. And I felt like as I started like watching your program, like you have some of the most quality content of anybody I've really seen, and it may be undervalued at this time.
Wow.
It is absolutely like of like such significant quality. And I was able to like connect with some other groups and stuff through things that you like, you bring, you highlight, and people that you highlight, and programs and things that you're involved within. And I really felt like it was like this ancestral spirit kind of like putting the brakes or pausing kind of where I was at with like my business structure and some of the things. And I like, I've created like an entirely, like I was blending too many things, and I've now separated and organized it properly. So I have an entire new organization. You doubled my workload.
I apologize.
Inspiration though needs the it really needs the space to thrive. And even though I was heavily concentrated in cannabis, and I still am, I'm not taking anything away. I have just understood that like in order for cannabis to even thrive, just like many other industries, like our Africanness has to be put first and to the forefront, because there's a lot of things that's going to enable the things that we're trying to be inclusionary with.
Right.
Okay, then inclusion will be like total, like it probably won't even be a word in the dictionary anymore. That way,
100%.
what? Like, you know?
Yeah.
So I have now I'm in the process of instituting the new United Model Africa program.
Okay.
That's what NUMA stands for. It's actually immune backward, if anyone catches that. But I just I'm really passionate about this, and I know it will be a long uphill kind of thing for me. But I've prepared for this. Like I've arranged these type of organization before. You know, I've professionally participated in Model United Nations and in organizing multiple delegations for that, for children and adults and high school and college level. So now I'm like, we need that structure, but it needs to come from a place of Afrocentrism. I can do this. So like, I need support. I need like to network like crazy and get this thing off the ground. And I feel like I just need to connect some of these other organizations that I've like learned so much about as well. But I'm creating this as primarily as a point of interest for people who are not in the immediate diplomatic system. This is for regular people to begin holding and making themselves accountable for some of the things that we need by bringing and representing places from the diaspora that they can really come and discuss issues with and produce some type of action. And we need that.
My sister, you said so much. First
Sorry,
of all, no, I'm not. I'm not even complaining. You brought a different energy. I allowed you to speak because you were bringing a different energy to the conversation, and I think it was necessary. And first of all, thank you. I'm humbled by everything that you said in relation to myself. I'm a little bit speechless about that, so forgive me for not being articulate. But just thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the last thing I'm saying. And I look forward to seeing what you're working on grow. I've actually thought about you recently because as I'm building the platform, there are certain of our flagship shows that I'm going to be producing soon. And so I thought about you in relation to at least one of them. But stay tuned. We're not talking nothing.
I know I have a few personalities, and I've messaged you. I messaged you from something.
Okay, right, that's fine. I haven't seen it, but it's fine.
I'm all the same person. I don't know.
Okay, I get it. But it was more because you've been on before and you've spoken about things. So I'm gonna holler at you at some point. Yeah. So just stay tuned. It might not be in the next couple of months, but just stay tuned. I'm gonna holler at you. In relation to the subject and what you shared, in relation to the whole the dimensions. And this is why I think the brother, the middleman, says what he says, because there are so many permutations and dimensions to a subject like this that we have to explore, right? And so that's why it's important to stay on topic. And you said a lot in terms of the various different ways in which we resist, yeah, and some of that resistance doesn't look like resistance, and some of it is just coping mechanisms. Hey, to the baba. You know what I'm saying? The element of not just looking at it materially but immaterially, right? Do you know what I'm saying? What it means to be connected as a people, yeah, and to seek to engage in connecting ourselves to each other, yeah. There's healing in that.
Or you can connect immaterially.
I said, yeah. If you don't understand that, I don't know.
Yeah, please. What?
Yeah.
Telepathy. What? I mean,
yes.
We need technology. We need technology, which is as a result of material improvement.
Yes, what we do, coffee, yeah, is we pour libation and call it ancestor.
Okay, I get you. I get you.
All right. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, because obviously a lot of these is ideas, yeah. And so, for example, just to answer Coffee's question, a basic example, the idea of family, yeah, family is not a material concept, yeah. All right, but it manifests in material ways, yeah. So when I say immaterial, I don't necessarily mean that it's not connected to the material, or that it doesn't manifest in material ways, but it's not always quantifiable, yeah. So when the sister speaks about being able to communicate, yeah, with a brother, and having a basis for communication that is grounded in that shared culture and that shared experience, and from that, the point I was actually trying to make is those things relate to the social organizations that create economic systems, yeah, that create political systems, right? Especially if you understand anything about the role that ancestors play, the concept of ancestorship plays in our indigenous cultures, yeah. It informs social and political and economic organization. And I think when the sister's saying about speaking in parables and metaphors and referencing different ancestors, and they have a significance within the culture, that's something, yeah. Every culture has that, and it's those things that allows that culture to function, yeah. To give another example, when you say democracy in the West, yeah, people have an idea of what that means, and those who are in power organize themselves in certain ways, yeah, to act in the interest of whatever they consider to be democracy, yeah. And so a functional culture is
even the word democracy, different people have different interpretations in the West.
Of course, there are various different definitions of almost any concept. The point I'm making is that there is a shared understanding and of a shared way in which people relate to the word.
Not really, because you have cultural wars in America about how you define democracy.
Any culture would have convergence and divergence. A functioning culture is able to manage those and handle those. The fact of difference is not an example of a lack of cohesion within a culture. In fact, for cultures...
No, but you were specific about the word democracy.
It was an example, so we don't have to get bogged down on the example. I was saying,
no, but if you say democracy have a cohesive definition in the West, that's not true.
I never said it had a cohesive definition. I said differences in terms of how people relate to democracy does not equal a lack of cohesion within the culture that affirms it. So the geopolitical West.
But America not cohesive. America is very divided. Ask the American on the panel. The Trumpists, and then the liberals, and again, then the progressives, and the environment is
so again,
very fractured.
Sorry, again, if you're listening to what I'm saying, there's nothing that you just mentioned that goes against what I've just said. There are differences in any culture, and there are debates in any culture, yeah? But America operates as a part of the geopolitical West, who function as a hegemony over global geopolitics at this moment in time, and they are able to function. That is the point that is being made. Okay, so we don't have to get bogged down on the example. It's
Well,
just
is you bring up the word democracy and the meaning. I'm
it
just
was
saying
an
that
example. It was
there
an
is no
example.
set meaning of
It was an
democracy in the
example.
West or
It
in
was an
America.
example. Unity does not equal
Yeah.
unity. Okay, you can have unity without unity. All right. So let's move on. Right. I'm just simply trying to affirm that the dimensions that the sister has brought into the conversation are very, very important for us to consider in this idea of victim mentality, in this idea of resistance, yeah, and in this idea of war, because the essential point for me is the organizational aspect of it, right? When she says we just haven't reached that stage of development yet, and we have to accept that and be honest about that. One of the things that I couldn't have gone into is after Kwame Nkrumah wrote Neocolonialism, he also wrote the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, which is about how we deal with neocolonialism. Yeah, and in it, one of the things that you said we have to do is we have to make an honest appraisal about our stage of development, our current stage of development in terms of getting rid of neocolonialism. Yeah, and I think that one of the reasons why people are able to run with this victim mentality caricature to a significant degree is because a lot of the work of resistance looks like trying to inform the people. So we're constantly trying to identify the systems. When you say global white supremacy, yeah, we're talking about, because we're trying to educate our people about the condition and about the nature of the system. We talk about neocolonialism because we're trying to politically and economically educate our people about the nature.
Economically educate.
So yes, so in relation to the
according to Melman, we shouldn't do that because we're not economists.
I'm going to finish saying what I'm saying. Thank you. So in relation to the work, yeah, the work often looks like just talking. Yeah, it can often, to the untrained eye, look like we're just a talk to people. Why? Because we're engaged in consciousness raising. And part of the issue may be that our consciousness raising methods are not as effective as they should be and can be. And maybe we need to diversify the methods that we're using. And maybe we can use more effective methods. I think Brother Bunya raised that point earlier in terms of his experience with his father. He understood it later, but at the time, he wasn't able to access the understanding that was required. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Imhotep there still, you know, so it's just off camera. You know what I'm saying? I just want to affirm that point though, because it's a very important point, that we cannot develop beyond where the masses of our people are, right? And so until there is a critical mass engaged in a certain level of organizing, we will remain at a certain level. Yeah, and sometimes we are going to only bring it so far. As the sister said, our children and grandchildren are going to take it that much further. We are going to wrap up in 10 minutes at the most. Yeah. By the way, I want to big up my brethren Bunchy. Yeah, over there in Ghana. Yeah, my brethren Bunchy and Yete. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. For those who don't know, he's a prolific writer, yeah, novelist, and all of these things. So do check him out, Bunchy Anyete, and get his books. You know what I'm saying? You know, me buy them for my picture them and all them thing there. So but it's also adult reading as well, innit? I've got a big data for those who are not aware. So me buy theme book them. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So big up my brother Bunchy Anyete. Over there in Accra, Ghana. At least I believe that's where he is. In my way for us travel, you know. So yeah, I see free Imhotep, and then we'll do a closing roundup.
Yeah.
Give me a turn to.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. We want to hear the socialism.
Going back to what you were saying about victim mentality, and how you were saying that it is possible to be a victim but yet not have a victim mentality. I think that's what you were saying. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Because you're a victim, but you're resisting those that are trying to keep you in the victim status.
Yes.
Right. So therefore, so that language. See, so how do you? So that is true. That's good.
Yes.
But how do you? what language do you use to open people's mind to sell that understanding? You see,
No, it's a good point.
Direct counter. What language you need to use? You can be a victim,
yeah,
but not have a victim mentality. I mean, what?
No, I would agree. I would agree, and I think that we use terms like freedom fighter, revolutionary. You know, we adhere to specific ideologies like Pan-Africanism, and we say we are Garveyite, and you know what I'm saying, them kind of things there, right? We affirm our Africanness as a rejection of colonial identities. Yeah, there are various different ways in which we engage in that kind of resistance. But I take your point in the sense of the fact that oftentimes when we deal with this concept of victim mentality, its effectiveness is to be found in the language. It's effective language, yeah, and it's effective imagery behind it. When you hear victim mentality, you see the image of somebody wallowing in self-pity. Yes, and it is intended to paint that image. Yeah,
exactly.
And so the idea is that we don't define people who are resisting victimization as victims, generally speaking. Yeah, we define them as people who are resisting victimization. So we will use terms like warrior. You know what I'm saying? Like, but yeah, that's that. Soldier. Yeah, we would find names for our organization. Yeah, like the Black Star Action Network International, which is an organization of which I'm a member. You know what I'm saying? The Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. Yeah, when we develop organization, we will develop language within the organization that gives expression to our agency. The Al-Kebulan Revivalist Movement. It's an organization that I was born into. Yeah. All right. You know what I'm saying? The Nation of Islam. Yeah. Right. These are all names. The names of the organization use language that speaks to the intentionality of the organization, and all of the language is designed to be empowering. You follow me?
Yes, but at the same time, that language has that, but you've got to somehow slip in the victim as well. It's like double. It's like double. We have to hit with the right and left. So you're showing the active positive, but then you've got to counter the weakness when you use the word victim. Somehow you got to overcome that power and say, look,
of course. But that's the reason why we're doing the show. I'm actually trying to destroy, the whole concept. Yeah, I'm actually just trying to attack the caricature. That's
right. That's right.
That's why I call the whole of the coward them to come, and test me double plate them. Yeah, me sword well sharp for this conversation. Yeah, and most of them never come. The people that we talk greasing in my chat every week. Yeah, and on social media and on British television, them now come round for come bring them sword. Yeah,
that's right. Because that's a military tactic. That's the art of war. They're not gonna come
because you weren't polite. You should ask them politely. If you bring war and sword to them, they're not going to
exactly. Yeah, that's right. The art of war, man. You have to be. Yeah, you have to draw them in.
Exactly.
you have to use what's his name? Hannibal tactics. Because when Rome, Rome was so strong, and then what Hannibal did, he marched his people forward, and then he planned for them to fall back. So you got to come soft. Rome comes in, and then he surrounded them.
I'm a Gaziite. No. Hold on there. You're wrong. Let me tell you why you're wrong. It's not me make the conversation hostile. The conversation done hostile already. All right. And
you have to de-escalate it.
There's a group here called Grave Diggers. Yeah, RZA. The RZA from the Wu-Tang was a part of this group. Yeah, called Grave Diggers. They got an album. Yeah, and on a song. Yeah. They say one of the songs says conscious brothers ain't gotta be soft. Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and I'm like, we don't have to be soft. Hold on. I've already dealt with humility and grace. Humility and grace is important. I've already dealt with that, right? I've already dealt with that earlier. When Bunia spoke, I dealt with humility and grace. Yeah, and I've addressed the subject of humility and grace. The point I'm making is that when them attack, how them attack, yeah, them talk greasy, yeah. everybody a gangster, yeah, when it comes to trying to caricature the Pan-Africanist, yeah. So now may I invite them to come test my gangster, yeah, that may I say, yeah, may I invite them to come test my gangster tonight, yeah, and I don't necessarily expect them to come. The point I'm making is I'm putting forward the point in a particular kind of way because I know it incurs a reaction, right? So yes, I am fully engaged in the art of war right about now. Me read my Marcus Garvey, well good. I'm gonna know about diplomacy, right? I will know about straight talk at the same time as well. You have to know when to employ both, yeah. And so what happens is that the dominant now I'm under no illusion. gotkushTV, as my sister Morning Rose was alluding to earlier, we have to be honest about our stage of development. Yeah, we're at a particular stage of development whereby those who are responsible for perpetuating this victim mentality caricature have far more resources at their disposal. Okay,
yeah,
far more resources. Yeah, so the honesty of the reflection of where we're at means that we're growing to a certain point, but as we're going through our developmental stages, we have to attack, preemptive strike, yeah, some of the caricatures that are designed, are already out there to give people an impression of who and what we are and what we stand for before they've even really got to know what it is. Does that make sense? So
yeah,
I'm attacking a caricature this evening. And I do it without apology, and I invite those without apology, unashamedly, who perpetuate that caricature for contestai. Yeah? And I do it deliberately. So I know exactly when me I do. All right. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, listen.
You declared war then.
I would say as well, Shaka, is that the fact that we are victims of post-traumatic slavery disorder and colonization disorder linked to reparation is that we have a duality of, yes, this is our diagnosis, and also this is our strength. So
beautiful point. Beautiful point.
Whenever someone wants to push us towards or victim, we can always use that. You understand what I'm saying? We can play. You understand? We're marketing, yes, but this is what we're doing. You understand?
Beautiful point. Beautiful.
There's no science behind slavery, post-slavery syndrome.
No.
Anyway, go on. I don't want to
indeed, right? The reality is, and this relates to something that Bunya was saying and something that Morning Rose was saying, yeah. In the sense, and I think I did mention it earlier as well. Part of it is not necessarily because we're dealing with war analysis, and we should maintain that, right? But part of warfare is also healing. There is mental and physical healing that you need to engage in order to be a viable soldier on the battlefield in whatever area of the battle you're involved in, even if you're a cook, yeah. And I'm saying that our failure to properly identify means that we are unable to properly heal. The power in healing is being able to identify what the sickness is, whether it be mental and or physical, yeah. And so let us not fall prey to the illusion that identification, yes, is in fact an act of wallowing in self-pity. Identification oftentimes is what empowers you to be an agent of your own healing. Yeah.
But if the argument is
we should not be 1 second, because we're wrapping up now, and everyone's gonna get a closing word, so don't worry about it. But we should not be guilt tripped into a position of not properly identifying and diagnosing our traumas, because we have them, and our sicknesses and our illnesses, because we do have them. Yeah. So beyond just going to war and battle, there is also a healing element to this thing that we also need to engage very importantly. I'm gonna go do a round of closing words. So I'm gonna start with my sister to get off to kick off the closing word energy. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully the energy of the sister permeates the whole of the closing word vibration. Yeah. go ahead, Woody Rose.
Yes. we must always be, we're always vibrating. It's just the level of that vibration. 100%. I would say that the conversation about whether or not we're a victim, what are we victimized by, who's victimizing us, what is the definition of our victimhood, is absolutely essential. It's just the context is what we have to nail down and understand that it is also an elementary level of us having the other conversations we have to have. So for the way I see that being as an active, productive measure is like, for example, like maybe a committee within my organization who would like be themed to be discussing their theories in that, and then in rearranging them so they can become theorems, which are, you know, the solved problem, because it's an active fact at that point. You know, then we can move on to solutions. There would be other committees intensive on producing proposals for actual solutions that don't focus on the energy of us being a victim, because they will be tasked with a different responsibility that comes from delegation. So it's almost like that burden is already relieved by that primary committee having discourse on that and having license to discuss that in depth and get into writing specifics in regards to that through the dialogue of diasporic people. Then next, simultaneously, other parts of those organizations can come and have discussions themed for the different things that they're supposed to be focusing on. And you can focus and have that language that Mr. IC3 is saying, that asking what is the language. That language will then be developed, in my mind, in those other organizations, other parts of organizations that are centrally focused on the elevation. We have victimhood, we have establishment of self, and then we have we can have creation of those solutions. So that language will come into play.
Beautiful.
We are this. We need this. This is how we're going to go about this.
Yes.
Then you could talk war later. You know, war's coming. I'm ready to fight though. But you know, with your energy, that was definitely like imagining like you like as some like anime character, like whipping out your dreads and like some spears being at the end of them. Like,
yeah, that was it. You know, that's what I say. You know,
that's the energy. It's coming.
Right.
You gotta get there. You have to.
I agree. I agree.
Strategy is the real thing we have to focus on, but it has to be compartmentalized.
Yes.
For action.
Effectiveness. I agree, sister. Thank you very much for your contribution. You've brought some pertinent points and a beautiful spirit. Yeah.
Thank you.
Coming back to the immaterial that coffee no like, you know.
Absolutely. Conversation, you know, is always
all over the place. Yes, I am. All right, thank you. Meloman, I realized I neglected to come back to you. So feel free to make whatever point you was gonna make before, because my apologies, and then make a closing comment.
Oh, all right, in respect. Well, in the spirit of solutions and stuff, right? So if I could put everything together, it's kind of like a thing where Black people have an issue with the current order, economic system, or whatever. These are the ones typically seen as having a victim mentality, right? And I think we already have somebody on the panel who could, you know, speak about that, like these people who have a problem with the system, right? Now, like I keep saying, we already live in this current system, right? The capitalist free market system. So my issues with it, I would really waste anybody time talking about it because I'm not an economist. But I'd much rather find a solution, right, in the medium to long term, which is how do we bring about then that golden age and all the benefits of capitalism and the free market for Black people, so that we can stop being seen as, you know, having a victim mentality. So how do we reap the benefits that England reaped or America reaped out of free market capitalism? Because apparently Rwanda isn't a good enough example. But especially on an individual level, because they do this a lot. Like if you're talking about something, they're going to say, well, what are you going to do about these policies that are holding back your economy? So I'd like to know, what should I do about Jamaica's economic policies, considering I'm not in government, right? How do I get the Minister of Finance to bring about these policy changes that is required to bring the golden age of capitalism and free market benefits to my poor island, please?
Interesting conversation question. When I have time to answer that question tonight, you know, but it's an important one, and no doubt, yeah, these are conversations that we're gonna be constantly coming back to.
And he never did want to talk about economics.
And we will certainly address them, yeah, in different conversations. So yeah, but that is the ultimate question. We have to even explore whether anyway, I'm gonna come back to we even have to explore the nature and premise of the question. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
It's a wonder you don't call that off topic.
And see, yeah, and just explore that to see whether that's viable or not as well. So give thanks for that question there, and thank you for imploring us to stay on topic, Mellow Man. We give thanks and I appreciate love for that still. All right, Kale. So I mean, in order of thing on my screen, Coffee, then Mr. IC3, then Kale.
Yeah, respect. I would say in terms of staying on topic, I don't think Black people on a whole have a victim mentality. I think a lot of race hustlers and poverty pimps want us to have a victim mentality because that's how they make their money. But Black people prove themselves today and even after slavery that whenever opportunities present themselves, we take advantage of it. So therefore the question is how we can bring about more opportunities for material and spiritual advancement, because there's no use talking about
spiritual advancement.
Yeah, because there's no use talking about spiritual advancement if everybody living in poverty and on the bare subsistence. Yeah, it's only after we leave the hunter-gatherer stage and go into farming and so forth in the higher stage of civilization. That's when we start contemplating philosophical, yeah, because as Marx said, the material can influence ideas. Right, good, yeah. Man.
Yes, comrade. Great.
So, based on what Comrade Meloman said, how you change a country like Jamaica, right? How we can get better countries, how we can get better communities, how we can get better schools in our communities, how we can get better security, so we can be protected from the police as well as the criminals. You know, how we can change black on black violence in America and places like Jamaica and elsewhere. So I think that the economic data is clear in terms of what policies work for prosperity and what policies maintain impoverishment and tribalism and the whole anti-capitalist mentality. In terms of changing countries like Jamaica, I would be the first to admit, it's extremely difficult because as we all know, Jamaica is a neocolonial country and the two political parties don't want to give up power. Because if you have a decentralized political and economic system, that is going to threaten vested interests, and those interests not going to roll over. So, yeah, I will concede to Meloman and say, it's extremely hard. I don't have all the answers. I just have some that agitate for free market capitalism, agitate for Garveyism, and the more those ideas spread, is the more the political class will have to contend with them. Most Jamaicans nowadays, because of the schooling, especially the intellectual get up at the University of West Indies, most of them brainwash in terms of what is the free market system, what is the role of government, what is the role of the private sector, and so forth. So mass ignorance is a reality, and it's going to be very, very difficult to change it. But it can change,
All right, give facts.
You might now swing from a university just so you know. What do you ask?
That was a very interesting.
Yo, born you, man.
I like the way, I do love the way that you waited until the end of the conversation to throw in the neoconservative, buzz terms like race hustlers and them kind of things there. Except for the fact that I won't address it, except for the fact that Marcus Garvey is a race for us. And so according to these people, Marcus Garvey would be a race hustler.
No, I never said that.
No, yeah.
I didn't say
again,
that.
Again, you argue
I
with
didn't say that. You said that. And what I'm
so
saying,
why you bring it up? I mean,
because race hustler is a terminology that is not coined by Coffee, yeah, and goes beyond.
Yeah, but I use it because you have race hustler out there.
Yeah,
enough of them. And poverty pimps. Enough of them.
That would have been relevant to the conversation from long time because those terminologies apply. I'm just saying,
like Black Lives Matter.
You brought that in right at the end of the conversation, right?
Straight up race hustler then.
So yeah, you know what I'm saying.
$90 million just so how them get that? And them suppose
their $90 million
so radical.
Their $90 million has nothing to do with their race.
Really? Them call themselves trained Marxists. Trained Marxists can ask for 90 million and get it just so.
Marx is
because like I said,
Marx is not a racial analysis. So
Black Lives Matter said that they are trained Marxists.
Yes,
that's what they said.
But you've also called them it doesn't matter. Let's move on. What's it called? IC3.
Yes, it was a great conversation, and I think I'd like to come back and share with the panel more discussions on the relationship between using the words victim in the context of finance, victim mindset and finance, because I think if trade and finance, they'll say, oh, it's a level playing field. And if you cannot find evidence of corruption, then there can be no victims.
Oh yeah, the good thing about that though is that the evidence of corruption is ubiquitous. So we're not a problem with evidence of corruption.
How? What do you mean ubiquitous?
The system itself is fundamentally corrupt. Yeah, the corruption about the place, all about the place. Yeah.
No, but how can you just? Yeah, but it's easy to say. But how would you?
No, I know, and I'm saying obviously I'm not going to go into all of the examples now because we're ending the show. I'm just saying the good thing about what you just said is that the evidence of corruption is ubiquitous. It's about the place, all about the place. Yeah. So we don't have no problem with evidence for corruption. It's about yeah. You know what I'm saying? All right. So, but yeah, another day we'll go into that, and we're doing more in terms of some of our.
Yeah, but you said that word corruption. That word corruption. You said the evidence of corruption is ubiquitous.
It is,
but from their perspective, they would say it's not corruption. It's just mismanagement or poor leadership. You see, it's not corrupt.
No, I know, but you're right. You're right, and that line of argument also feeds into this victim mentality argument. Yeah, poor leadership is a prerequisite of the functioning of the neocolonial system. Yeah, right. The neocolonial system requires poor leadership for it to function. So, so to say it's poor leadership is not to say it's not neocolonialism. Yeah, what it's designed to do is misdirect. So you focus on the poor leadership as though it's not a part of the neocolonial structure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So therefore, it also again protects the neocolonial structure. That's all it is. Yeah. So yeah, KO.
Yes, Kingman. Wicked show again. I just want to say that we have to always practice political science, knowledge of the system, his activity and behavior internationally. Our temperament is different. We are sun people. We have to always understand that there's ice, mountains, sand people. We have to understand the temperament and also use our words to politicize our agenda and feel comfortable, not to feel bad when we label things as in the best interest of our people, which can execute our agenda. Support gotkushTV, also Black Betterment, 10 p.m. on Fridays. I believe it will be 4 p.m. for the Americans, but nevertheless, big up for the political scientists, African channels. Big up ShakaRa and the rest of the panel. Big up, man.
One thing about Kel, yeah, Kel is a master of language, and him know for use the language, right? So one terminology that he's brought to the forefront that many brothers and sisters use is the difference between synchronized and unsynchronized Africans. Yeah, synchronized and unsynchronized Black people. Synchronized Africans are those who work in the interest of African people, and unsynchronized ones are those who follow the dictates of the colonizer. Yeah, and so we have to find language. Yeah, you're unsynchronized. So the whole of our leadership in Africa and the Caribbean unsynchronized and well unsynchronized. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. All right, you know what I mean. So we're trying to be a platform that facilitates synchronization of the African mind, body, and spirit. Imhotep, may I get the last word? So go through.
Peace. Hoping the sister Morning Rose is still here, but if not, that's no big scene. I wanted to big up Yoruba lessons with Adi Ronke. Because you taught me, or rather you shouted out and I started watching her videos. And she also was mentioning that Yoruba itself is a language where a lot of what is meant is not spoken. Just jumping upon what Sister Morning Rose was
Good point.
Big up Sister Adi Ronke. In a big way because she's doing serious work, etymological work of Yoruba. I don't know if anybody else is doing that in the world, so serious big up to everybody who listening, like and share. Especially if you have people who didn't get to see the show live, but you think they would enjoy it now that you have listened to the whole show, share it up, like up the video. Don't be afraid to join the panel next week. The brother don't bite, you understand? So I hear by myself, I'm not no expert in anything. I just have my opinions, and the brothers allow me to come and speak. You understand? But I wouldn't say most importantly, but most personal to me, though, I remember the last time Sister Morning Rose was on, we spoke about the journal of Jean-Jacques Dessalines. And I think Brother Kiel was here as well. And you guys were excited about it, but I have that number one, that requires a lot of studying for me to finish those entries. I have at least 45 more to do because I only have 5 right now. But separately, there's a universe that is flourishing in my head that I want to put to you, especially since you mentioned the brother Ponchi and Yete. I don't know the name, but just that you mentioned that he was an author and is doing young adult books, children's books, and that kind of stuff. There's a universe that is budding where I'm attempting to put basically 3 mock-up African civilizations that are going to be amalgams of some of the extant ones that we have now, that all derive from one civilization. And their continent has been invaded by some pale-skinned monotheists, you know, and so we're trying to explore, number one, the divergence of African cultures into distinct cultural groups, and then them forgetting that they used to be, or failing to recognize that they used to be the same. Number one. Number two, the aridification of the Sahara, because the continent is getting, well, I mean, I'm using snow instead of desert in this story. The kind of, the snow is spreading, it's getting further inland, and therefore it's going to create economic and food shortages and that kind of stuff, which is going to change the economics of the area and that kind of stuff now. So I wanted to speak to you privately to kind of really throw some of these ideas at you and see maybe what we could.
100. We'll talk. And I should also say, as well as my brother Bunchy and Yete, I did see my brother Scattered Minds, aka Tahaka, who's also an author, novelist, who's writing some grand epic, in that kind of way. So I want to big him up. He's a new father as well, so you know what I'm saying. While I'm big him up from them front there. But we'll talk Imhotep, Give thanks all, for coming to the panel. I'm gonna put everybody in the backstage now. And just say that man, good conversation, and every now and then I will do this, So some, more often than not, for those who are unaware, more often than not, for ZIVANAYI, which means let's get to know, we just open house, so I will bring whatever topic, depend film in mind to the platform. You all can come and contribute to the topics that I've raised or raise your own. Every now and then I'll just have a topic of conversation and we'll discuss that for the whole show. It's the first time I've done it, and It seemed for work. Yeah, so I'm gonna continue it every now and then. Yeah, and let's bring a topic. And I thought this was a good one. I was hoping more of the coward them would come forward and challenge my dub plate box. I'm in my shit, but they never come. So, but I'm sure they'll be out there, you know, on your social media speaking. You know what I'm saying? You know, in abundance, right? But as a morning rose pan Black Twitter and all of these things, kings and queens. All right, but stay tuned. Yeah, in the next few weeks, I'm going to be releasing an interview from brother Rakim Shabazz, who is a curator of an album called Why Is the Dome. Yeah, so I've interviewed him on the album. And we are edited up right here now, and we're gonna talk to him. So we're gonna release it soon. Yeah, so stay tuned for that. We're also releasing footage from one of our events called the African Alchemy of Spirituality that we had a couple years ago. So we're going to be releasing the presentations from that. There was a question earlier in the chat about when we are releasing the footage from Kemi Seba's visit to London recently. Soon come, yeah, no worry yourself, soon come, yeah. And I ate that. Oh, I'm organizing a panel discussion about what is taking place currently in Senegal. Yeah, people are rise up in Senegal right here now, and this relates to one of the questions that was asked in terms of how we, you know, we challenge the government. It's organizations of people. Yeah. You know, and as a morning Rose was saying, organizing our leverage. Yeah. And I'm gonna say this: most, if not all, our governments are gonna have to be overthrown by force. That is the reality of the situation. All right. So I'll just say it go. And on that note, kings and queens, Tenda Mwadi, be thankful unto Mother, Father, creative life force of the universe. Kudzai Mudzimu Mukuru, give praises unto our great ancestors, Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodie, African liberation and African power for all African people. Share.
Fire burn them dirty king, blaze up them dirty king, fire burn them king, send him disastrous, and time he fast with us, ancestors walk with us, fire burn them king.
Mina bakabusi nengre me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre mine pele obiama. Mina bakabusi nengre me fele sama.
Mina bakabusi nengre ebele